No, no, no. We only need the water. How can we take your breakfast? The old lady quickly shook her hands. She only took the water with a smile as she said, "We can soak the biscuit in the water, and we will be able to eat it later." "Thank you very much." "Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Just the water will do for us." Old Jack, too, said with a smile as he twisted open the cap, and poured the hot water onto the cover. Then, he broke the biscuit into pieces and soaked them in the water. The hot water softened the biscuit quickly. "I have already had my breakfast, and these steam cakes cannot be eaten once they get cold. It would be a pity to waste them, so can you help me eat them please?" This, Old Jack and his wife looked at each other thoughtfully. It would really be a pity to waste such good steam cakes, but they didn't feel good to accept others' goodwill. Smiling, Mag continued, "Actually, I have a favor to ask the two of you, thus I bought you breakfast. If you don't accept them, then I can't ask you about that too. What would you like us to help you with, sir? Please tell us. If we can do it, we will help you," the old lady said with conviction. "Please have a seat and eat while I tell you about it." Mag thrust the cakes into the old couple's hands. They could only accept the cakes since Mag wouldn't take no for an answer. "I would like to know, how many cleaners are working in Aden Square?" Mag asked the two of them curiously. "There are 32 of them in total. That's the number of cleaners present at our usual meeting." Old Jack pondered before looking at Mag perplexedly. "Why are you asking about this?" The old lady was also looking at Mag perplexedly. Why was this kind gentleman asking about them, the cleaners? "Oh, it's like this. I am the boss of that Mamie restaurant over there. I think you guys are working very hard to keep the square clean, so I would like to provide you with a breakfast that would warm your stomachs," Mag said with a smile. Old Jack and his wife were both looking at Mag in a shock. Normally, the pedestrians wouldn't even look at them. The restaurants treated them as pests, and would chase them away whenever they got close. That was the reason why they didn't dare to approach them for a cup of hot water. But this kind gentleman actually said he wanted to provide breakfast for them? Mamie Restaurant? That famous restaurant at the end where there are always long lines in front of it. Old Jack exclaimed as he suddenly recalled something. "Oh, that restaurant," the old lady exclaimed too. They had often heard people talking about that restaurant during their meetings for the past few days. They heard it came in first for the delicious cuisine rankings, and hundreds of customers were lining up in front of it every day. The cheapest dish in that restaurant cost 200 copper coins, and the most expensive dish even cost 10,000 copper coins for a single helping. Oh my heavens! They couldn't imagine what food that cost 10,000 coppers looked like. It couldn't be made out of gold, right? They couldn't even earn 10,000 copper coins for a year's work. Yes. That should be the restaurant you refer to. Mag nodded. He didn't expect Mamie Restaurant to be even more famous than he had imagined. "You are saying you want to provide breakfast for us?" Old Jack was still asking doubtfully. This was simply too unbelievable. "Yes. I wonder where could I go to meet your person in charge? I would like to talk to him directly." Mag nodded. The old lady calmed down fairly quickly. She pointed to an alley not far away, and said, "Our office is on the second floor in that alley. We have our meeting there every day at 9 in the morning. Mr. Sidka, our person in charge, will be there too." Mad looked at the direction that the old lady pointed and smiled. "All right, thank you very much. Please enjoy your breakfast. I'll see you later. We should be the ones to thank you. This is the best breakfast we have ever eaten," the old lady replied with gratitude. Mag bade farewell to the old folks, and rode his bicycle back to the restaurant. It would be the best to talk directly with their person in charge for this matter, and it would be great to get a name list to identify all the personnel in order to prevent trouble. This was to prevent pretenders from appearing. After all, Mag wasn't running a charity. He only wanted to help those in need, and not everybody. Long lines were forming in front of Mamie restaurant as usual. Harold and his family were at the forward part of the line, and he was looking at the restaurant's entrance expectantly. For someone who usually skipped breakfast, he was totally enamored with that scrumptious yoshao and soybean milk set meal after trying it at Mamie restaurant for the first time yesterday. Of course, the most important thing was that after eating that breakfast yesterday, his stomach didn't hurt at all for the whole day, and there were no symptoms of bloating and acid reflux, either. He spent the whole day having fun with his wife and daughter energetically. That feeling was simply marvelous. Therefore, early this morning, before Doris needed to say anything, he brought them to Mamie restaurant again straight after he woke up so they could eat breakfast together as a family. "Father, can I have an ice cream?" Kathy asked Harold with anticipation, pulling his hand. Harold shook his head with a smile, and said, "Not today. It's too cold to eat that in the morning. Father will bring Kathy back to eat ice cream again on my next day off." "All right." Kathy was a little disappointed, but she soon smiled again. "It's so blissful to be able to have my meals with Father every day. I feel very blissful too." Harold stroked Kathy's head. This little one had already grown so tall in the blink of an eye. He had indeed missed out a lot, hence, he would have to spend even more time with them in the future. "This is indeed a wonderful restaurant." Doris looked at the father and daughter with a blissful smile on her face. "Mr. Mag, I will have to leave. The princess needs me." Ferris went up to Mag the very moment he stepped into the restaurant. She softly said, "Miss Camilla is able to take over my job now, so even if I leave, the restaurant won't be very much affected." "Of course. Why would I not want such an outstanding employee like you?" Mag nodded. However, these words seemed to have raised a red flag. Only an outstanding employee. Ferris was a little disappointed, but she soon smiled and nodded. "Then, I will definitely make it back." Mag continued, "I have already been asking around for Princess Irina's current location for you. I admire her greatly for her noble character in fighting for the freedom of the common elves. The current situation of the night elves shouldn't be too good. Hence, I will be donating some foodstuffs in my name, and you can travel with the team that is escorting the food items. In this case, you could take care of one another on the road." Food. Ferris was taken aback, but she soon realized the princess was no longer the one that was worshipped and loved by all the elves. The conditions of the night elves had to be very dire, and she actually hadn't thought of that. Mr. Mag was indeed a very thoughtful person. "Yes. Take a break first, Ferris. I'll bring you to a place after the breakfast service is over. I still have to make some arrangements personally." Mag nodded. "Oh, okay." Ferris quickly nodded. She didn't even know where the princess was now, and she didn't expect Mr. Mag had done so much for her secretly. He even made all the arrangements in advance. "Ferris, are you leaving us too?" Yabimiya came forward to hold Ferris's hand sadly. "First it was Aisha, then it was Shirley, and now you are going to leave too. I can't bear to let you go." "Yes. Are you elves all so busy?" Babla was also looking at Ferris perplexedly. The Moon Nation had never had a war before. All its people were living in harmony. They even seldom quarreled or fought. Everyone crowded around her. Even though Ferris didn't talk much normally, she still established rather good friendships with all of them. It made them sad to bid farewell to her. "I am going to cook for the princess. I will be back once the war is over. I guess Miss Aisha and Miss Shirley will be back too." Ferris was looking at them with reddened eyes. She, too, felt sad to say goodbye. Here, she had gained friendship for the first time. She also had people to care about her apart from the princess. What a warm place! If possible, she would like to stay here forever. "Let's get ready for operation." Mag glanced at his watch and walked to the kitchen. The busy breakfast service was over very quickly. Mag removed his apron and hung it on a rack. After asking Firas to wait for him, he went upstairs to change his clothes. Mag came down and said, "Let's go." Firas acknowledged Mag's words, and then followed Mag to the door. "Wait a minute," Anna said from behind right at this moment. Firas turned around. Anna jogged to Firas and held up a little rabbit that was knitted with white yarn in her little hands. She softly said, "Big Sister Firas, if you see Big Sister Shirley, please pass this little rabbit to her. Tell her I will be always waiting for her to come back." Firas looked at that plump rabbit and nodded. "Okay. I will pass it to her if I meet her." "Thank you." Anna's tears were already rolling about in her eyes. She threw herself into Firas's arms, and chokingly said, "You guys, must come back. Firas's eyes were red too and she gave Anna a tight hug. "Firas, write to me if you guys can't hold on anymore. I will bring the Moon Nation's army to help you." Bablau lifted her hand, trying to make her expression as nonchalant as possible. "Count me in too." Elizabeth raised her hand. I can't do much, but if you need me, I will come too." Yabimiyu raised her hand too. "Thank you, everyone." Firas gave all of them a brilliant smile and waved. "Goodbye, everyone." Mag looked at all of them, and he suddenly had a warm feeling in his heart. He didn't know when it started, but all the people in the restaurant were giving him a sense of camaraderie. Through the simple and happy daily interactions, they had formed a warm relationship. This was the friendship that he had never had in his previous life. It had nothing to do with money and status. The simple and beautiful relationship had touched the softest part in his heart. "If that day is to come, I will be going too. For sure," Mag said secretly in his heart. No matter if it was Irina, Sally, Shirley, or Firas, he simply couldn't stand aside and do nothing. Mag went out with Firas on the bicycle. After leaving Aden Square, they went to the north of the city and turned into a small alley. After making multiple turns in there, they stopped in front of a rather old courtyard. "Wait here for me, Firas." Mag walked to the courtyard and knocked. 3 long knocks and 2 short knocks. After a moment, the door cracked open inward and an eye peeped out. The eye lit up instantly when it saw Mag, and pulled the door wide open. "Boss Mag, you are here." Mon said to Mag respectfully before yelling into the yard, Boss Mag is here. We will talk inside." Mag turned and waved to Firas as he stepped into the courtyard. "Are they our customers?" Firas looked at Mond in surprise, and quickly caught up with Mag. "Boss Mag, you came." SAHDR, who was topless, came out to welcome Mag immediately when he walked in. Then, he saw Firas who followed Mag in, and swiftly went back to his room to put on some clothes. He came out after a while, rubbing his head embarrassingly as he said, "I thought you came alone." "Chief SAHDR, we can execute the mission that we have discussed before now. I wonder if you guys have already prepared the items that I needed." Mag said with a smile. "Boss Mag, I have prepared all the food items that you asked me to procure. They are all loaded on the wagons that are parked in the backyard. We can set off any time after we strap on the unicorns to them." SAHDR brought Mag to the backyard where 20-odd wagons full of food were parked. Mag nodded. "This food should be enough to tide the night elves over this winter." He said to SAHDR, "Besides the food, Firas will also be going with you. I hope Chief SAHDR can take care of her along the journey." "Don't worry, I got this. As long as I am alive, I will not let Miss Firas suffer a single scratch," SAHDR promised as he slapped his chest for emphasis. "This is a long journey, and there might be attacks from the elves. About the payment, Boss Mag, 1,000 holy rugiamos are already a very hefty payment, and you have even prepared all the rugiamos that we need for the journey. Don't worry, we'll deliver both the food items and Miss Firas safely there." SAHDR interrupted Mag's words with a humble smile, but his tone of voice was full of conviction. Ever since Firas said she wanted to go to Irina, he had started to prepare. Because his power had not returned to his peak, he couldn't give too much direct support. Hence, he could only provide support in other ways, such as preparing the food needed and engaging the Burning Legion to escort them. From what he knew about Irina, she definitely wouldn't think about the problem of food before she began the revolution. Facing the crazily intense siege from the Wind Forest now, obtaining food had to be a very difficult task. I didn't expect Mr. Mag to have prepared so much for me. This is so touching. Firis looked at the numerous wagons parked in the backyard and felt very touched. She looked at Mag with reddened eyes again. After discussing with SAHDR, Mag turned and walked to Firis. He took out a booklet wrapped with craft paper and passed it to her. This is... Firis received the booklet with a rapidly beating heart. Maybe Mr. Mag had something to tell her? If so... Firis, I'm willing, Firis burst out, and then realized that she had jumped the gun. Her face blushed instantly. Willing? Mag raised his eyebrows. He had no idea what this lass was talking about, and why did she blush. He continued, Firis, this is a book on the art of war that I have chanced upon. I think it's quite well written, you can pass it to your princess. Maybe it will give her some help. Pass this to the princess. Firis was stunned. So, this wasn't a gift that Mr. Mag had prepared for her, and she just... Firis was slightly disappointed, and she blushed even harder. She nodded. Oh okay, I will pass this to Her Highness. War is perilous. Please be very careful. This knife can be considered as my gift to you. There will always be a place for you in the restaurant. Come back when the war is over. Mag took out a Chinese cleaver from the pouch at his waist and gave it to Firis. This is boss's personal cleaver, Firis said in a surprise as she received the cleaver with both her hands. It had the familiar proportions and weight. Smiling, Mag said, now it's yours. Thank you, boss. A smile appeared on Firis's face. Goodbye, Mag said to Firis with a smile as he saw that the unicorns were already strapped to the wagons and the Burning Legion was looking at them. Goodbye, boss. Firis waved goodbye to Mag too. Then, she turned and ran toward the wagons and hopped onto one. Mag watched the long convoy depart slowly from the entrance. He stood at the empty alley for a while before leaving on his bicycle. One could only wonder how to win this war of great strength disparity. He, too, had to advance his power rapidly. Otherwise, it wouldn't matter how many backup plans he had. When Mag reached the Aiden Square's cleaning department on his bicycle, they were about to disperse after the morning meeting. Mag knocked. All the 30-odd elderly cleaners and the young man in his 30s in the front all looked over at him, standing at the entrance. Excuse me for interrupting. I am the boss of Mamie Restaurant, Mag. I have something to discuss with everyone. May I come in? Mag asked with a smile. Oh, it's that kind gentleman. The old lady's eyes lit up, and she poked old Jack, who was snoozing next to her. Mr. Mag. Old Jack opened his eyes in a befuddlement, and they lit up too. He waved to Mag smilingly, and then said to the young man sitting at the front, Mr. Sidka, this is the kind gentleman that I told you about earlier. Old Jack, is he the kind gentleman who bought you breakfast this morning? You said he wants to prepare a hot breakfast for us. Is it really the Mamie Restaurant? I heard that restaurant is very expensive. The cleaners all began to discuss softly and gazed at Mag in amazement. This was the first time that something like that had ever happened. If they could have a hot breakfast every morning, it would be so blissful. Sidka stood up with a smile on his squarish face after hearing that, and said to Mag, please come in, Mr. Mag. Old Jack has told me about you, and you really came. Mamie Restaurant was very famous now, so he naturally had heard of it. The cleaning department belonged to the city lord's castle. Although he was in charge of the area of Aiden Square with 30-odd cleaners working under him, he was still an ordinary employee. The cleaning department usually recruited old people who couldn't do menial tasks, and had no other forms of support. Their work efficiency was very low, and their wages could only sustain their basic needs. However, this was already a huge part of the city lord's castle's fiscal expenditure, so they were not able to further improve the cleaners' working conditions. Hence, even though he knew these old folks were having a hard time, especially on the winter mornings when they had to work in the cold and ate frozen food, with some of them even passing away, he couldn't do anything as a normal wage worker with a family to provide for. Therefore, he was pleasantly surprised when he heard someone was willing to provide breakfast for the cleaners. He was even more astonished that this person was the boss of Mamie Restaurant. Recently, there were a lot of rumors about Mamie Restaurant going around in the city lord's castle. The servers there were all top beauties, the city lord was a regular customer, and the important meeting of the three races was held there. He also heard that a prisoner who had escaped from the Bastille prison yesterday had gone straight to the Mamie Restaurant. Every single rumor was shocking, let alone when they were all about the same restaurant. "How do you do, Mr. Sidka? Hello, everyone." Mag went in with a smile. It seemed like the two old folks had been promoting him. "It's like this. I see that everyone has to start their cleaning job so early every single morning, and the weather is getting so cold, so I want to provide some breakfast for you. It may not be a fancy feast, but I hope it can bring you some warmth," Mag said, straight to the point. "This is great. This is such good news. Yes. Mr. Mag is such a wonderful person. We don't have to eat breakfast that resembles an ice cube anymore." A round of enthusiastic applause sounded as soon as Mag finished talking. "Mr. Mag, I thank you on behalf of the Aden Square's cleaning department," Sidka said gratefully, grasping Mag's hand. "Wishing chance, the host can make a wish with the system, and the system will try to fulfill it to the maximum of its capabilities. Then, how to get the good person cards?" Mag continued to ask. This wishing chance sounded rather good. As long as the host continues to do good deeds, there is always a good probability to receive a good person card. That is really a good person's card, Mag pursed his lips. It didn't sound very dependable. God knew how many good deeds he had to do in order to get 5 good person cards. He looked at the shiny congee with pork and century egg recipe that just appeared in his head, and thought this had to be the simplest mission he had ever done. However, as the mission began, so did the responsibility. Providing a hot breakfast for the cleaners every day was a matter of long-term perseverance. "All of you are too kind. From tomorrow onward, please gather at the entrance of Mamie Restaurant at 6:30 am. I will provide breakfast for all of you free of charge," Mag said to them smilingly. Everyone began to praise Mag again. "Mr. Sidka, may I have a name list of your people? Let us get to know one another. This is to prevent others sneaking in to deprive the folks of their breakfast. Therefore, I would like to do a simple get-to-know session," Mag said to Sidka. "Sure, of course. Mr. Mag has indeed considered every aspect." Sidka nodded, quickly strode to his desk, and retrieved a name list from a messy pile of papers. He passed it to Mag and introduced the names to him at the same time. "All right. Thank you." Mag kept the name list. He had already memorized everyone's names. Hence, he wouldn't have to worry about others sneaking in for the free breakfast. "I will take my leave now." Mag nodded to old Jack and his wife before bidding his farewell. He had to head back to do some preparation. This boss Mag is really a good man. Yes. I heard even the cheapest food in that restaurant will cost 200 copper coins. I have never eaten such expensive food before. The cleaners were still discussing happily with a bright smile after Mag left. "All right, let's go home and have a rest, everyone," Sidka said, and everyone went home. Mag returned to the restaurant. Yabimiya should have gone to the ice cream shop. Only Anna was squatting in front of the full-length glass windows. She was hugging Ugly Duckling as she gazed outside. Mag watched her at the side for a while before going over and crouching next to her. He softly said, "What are you thinking about, Anna?" "I am thinking, we'll surely ever meet big sister Aisha on the battlefield." Anna turned to look at Mag as she worriedly said, "If they met each other, would one of them be dead?" No. Mag shook his head with a smile and said, "No matter if it is Aisha or Shirley, they won't hurt each other. Even when they are standing on the opposite sides. After all, they are comrades who had fought together before." Anna pondered. Then, a smile appeared on her face and she nodded. "Yup, they are both very kind elves and are true elves too. Okay, let's not sit here in a daze anymore. How about I'll teach you how to make Yongzhou fried rice today?" Mag said smilingly as he placed his hand gently on Anna's head. "Really?" Anna's eyes lit up. She had been practicing her knife skills all this time. She hadn't done any real cooking yet. "Of course it's real." Mag nodded, and then bought a set of kitchenware suitable for Anna from the system in his mind. Anna's knife skills were already quite good, and she could cut the ingredients into the necessary sizes for the fried rice. It was time for her to learn the actual cooking. The system provided a wok that was only half the size of a normal wok. It looked a little mini wok, but it was still quite a big wok for Anna. The spatula was also a miniature one, even Anna's little hand could grasp it easily. Anna carried a small stool over herself. She was just at the height that she could reach the stove when she stood on it. She looked at Mag with anticipation. She had to watch Uncle Mag make hundreds of Yongzhou fried rice for everyone, and thus she had already memorized every single step and detail in her heart. She only lacked the chance to put them to practice. Now, she could finally try to make Yongzhou fried rice that belonged to her. Yongzhou fried rice is a rather complicated dish. There are stringent requirements for the control of the fire and the control of the timing to add in the different ingredients. We will start from preparing the ingredients. Mag took out 2 sets of ingredients from the fridge. He passed one set to Anna, and kept one set for himself. Then, he began to teach her attentively. Anna stared and focused all her attention. Although she had seen the same steps thousands of times, she still didn't want to miss any details. She remembered every word that Mag said. A helping of Yongzhou fried rice that looked, smelled, and tasted good was soon ready. Mag put that helping of Yongzhou fried rice aside with a smile and said, "All right, Anna, you can start cooking for the first time." Hum. Anna nodded. She glanced at Mag before retrieving her gaze. She stood in front of the cutting table with her eyes closed for a while. Then, she opened her eyes and picked up that Chinese cleaver. There wasn't any sense of cumbersomeness even when that small hand was holding that thick Chinese cleaver. The knife landed on the chopping board with a gentle rhythm. All the ingredients were cut into a rice grain size with the cleaver, and then put on a plate by Anna, waiting to be used. She turned on the fire and poured in the oil. She put the ingredients in when the oil's temperature was just right. She flipped and tossed, and everything flowed smoothly. This was Anna's first trial in cooking, but her performance impressed Mag. This didn't look like it could be done by a 6-7 years old child. This child is indeed very talented. Mag couldn't help but praise her in his heart. Given time, she would become an even better chef than he was. She turned off the fire and plated the fried rice. Anna carried the first Yongzhou fried rice that she made gingerly over and placed it next to Mag's. She expectantly said to Mag, "Please try it, Uncle Mag." A helping of Yongzhou fried rice that is charred. The difference in appearance became very obvious when the 2 helpings of Yongzhou fried rice were placed next to each other. In Anna's fried rice, the winter bamboo shoot and tree mushroom became dark brown, and the rice wasn't coated with the egg perfectly. Many of the rice grains were broken. It was also too shiny due to the overdosage of oil. "Sure, I'll try it." Mag picked a spoon and fed himself a mouthful of Yongzhou fried rice. The overly salty taste almost made him spit it out. The salt wasn't spread out evenly during the frying, and the charred taste was very obvious. Chapter 1130 Uncle Mag, are you planting flowers? Mag swallowed the fried rice and gave her a thumbs up with a smile as he said, it's not bad overall, but there is still room for improvement when it comes to controlling the fire techniques and your use of salt. However, it is already very impressive for our Anna to be able to achieve such a standard on her first try. It seems that I've still made a lot of mistakes. But it's okay, I will continue to work hard. Anna nodded and smiled happily. Anna, wait here for me for a while. We'll go to the market together. Let's buy you some ingredients to practice with. Mag reached out and stroked Anna's head before he turned to go upstairs. He clicked on the shimmering gold recipe in his mind, and a flood of information surged into his head. Congee with pork and century egg was not a complicated dish, but it was still very scrumptious. Making congee itself was not complicated work, but making delicious century egg was the most complicated part of this entire dish. Century egg was also called Songhua egg. It could be considered part of one of the dark cuisines of the East. Mag was okay with century eggs. He was neither a fan nor a hater. If he came across a plate of delicious century egg salad, he would still be able to take a few mouthfuls of it. According to the regular procedure, it would take around 30 days to make century eggs. However, the system's upgraded recipe and improved technology were able to shorten the 30 days time period for the fermentation of the century egg to 3 days. Despite that, even if Mag could master the congee with pork and century egg, he would still be unable to make the cleaners a piping hot bowl of congee with pork and century egg because of the lack of ingredients. System, is this a trap? How can a congee with pork and century egg be called a congee with pork and century egg without century eggs? Mag said as he rolled his eyes. Don't worry, host. The system had already prepared 3 days worth of century eggs for you, so as long as you can master the congee with pork and century egg, the sale of it would not be affected, the system said. What type of egg did you use? How much are you charging for each egg? Mag asked. The system uses the eggs of Karen ducks from the Morning Lake in the southwestern side of the Twilight Forest. Karen ducks are third-tier magic beasts, and feed mainly on fish. Their eggs are rich in nutrients, sweet in flavor, and cool in nature, with the benefits of nourishing the yin and clearing the lungs. Only one egg is produced every month, so it is very limited. In addition, to make the century egg, the system chose to use the soil at Vic Mountain and the ashes of rice watered by the spring of life. All right, just tell me the price. Mag rolled his eyes. The price of one century egg is 200 copper coins. One century egg can be used to make 4 bowls of congee with pork and century egg, the system replied. Mag thought for a while before asking, System, what is the cost price of one century egg if it was made from an ordinary duck egg and ingredients that are more easily obtainable? Host, as a candidate for the god of cookery, it is only basic professional ethics to use the best ingredients to make delicious food for the customers. How can you make do with ordinary ingredients in the situation where you have the choice of excellent ingredients? That's not befitting of the status and judgment of the god of cookery. Firstly, I am the owner of a restaurant who has to think about making profits. While doing good, I have to control the amount I put in for my cost price to prevent the restaurant from running into a crisis just because of my personal feelings or actions. This is a display of intelligence. It has nothing to do with status or judgment, Mag interrupted the system. But with normal ingredients, you would not be able to bring out the best flavor of this dish. There would be a big gap with the capabilities of the host as a candidate for the god of cookery. This would not be advantageous for the image of the god of cookery, the system insisted. I will use normal ingredients and my most sincere culinary skills to make a bowl of congee with pork and century egg for the hard-working cleaners, not so that they would embark on the journey of a foodie, but because they have worked in the cold for consecutive hours, and having a bowl of piping hot and delicious congee will make it easier for them to bear the winter. System, you're forgetting the initial cause of this. You're missing the point. Mag smirked, and said, prepare 33 servings of ordinary century egg for me. An ordinary duck egg costs 2 copper coins in the market, I will give you 5 copper coins for making the century egg and additional 3 copper for your other expenditure. So, it'll be 10 copper coins for an ordinary century egg. Host, you that's settled, Mag interrupted the system calmly, and continued, I will take the best century egg from you for the congee with pork and century egg that is sold in the restaurant. You will supply the ordinary century egg from now on. It's a fixed order and the price quoted is reasonable. Your profits will be more than 5 times your cost price. This is a business opportunity that is hard to come by, Mag said with a smile. Deal, the system said almost immediately. The corner of Mag's lips curled up slightly. After going through the ingredients in his mind, he turned to walk downstairs with a basket as he brought Anna out to the market. Learning cooking required a large number of ingredients. The cost price of using the ingredients in the fridge was too high, so Mag wanted to let Anna practice with normal ingredients first, just like Firas. At the same time, he wanted to buy the ingredients for the breakfast that he was going to make for the cleaners tomorrow morning. Lowering the cost price for his philanthropy would allow him to last longer. Mag's money did not fall from the sky, so he knew very well what he should do. 100 duck eggs, 2 bags of good quality pearl rice, a piece of lean meat, and other ingredients needed to make century eggs. When he came out from the market, Mag's basket was already filled with various ingredients. Send the rice to Mamie restaurant in half an hour, Mag told the owner of the rice shop who was loading the rice into his cart. After that, he brought Anna to a DIY shop to buy some soil and ashes before returning to the restaurant. Uncle Mag, are you planting flowers? Anna looked at Mag curiously as she watched him put the soil, ashes, and other things down. No, I am preparing to make a food called century egg. Mag shook his head and put the things down behind a shelf for later use. He had to wait until he entered the test field for the god of cookery tonight before he could start making century eggs. Century egg? Anna thought for a while. She had never heard of such food. However, she had never heard of any food that Uncle Mag made, yet he could still surprise everyone every time. Anna, if you want to continue practicing, you can use these ingredients. When you are able to make a plate of Yangzhou fried rice that I am satisfied with, you can start using the ingredients in the fridge, Mag said with a smile as he put the ingredients for Anna on the table. Dissatisfaction. Jeffrey looked up and looked at Cyril cynically. Since when do I need to seek the approval of others when I make my decisions? Besides, who else would be dissatisfied with it other than you? Cyril's lips trembled. He slowly clenched his fists as he looked at Jeffrey, and decisively said, Sir, Gloria is just a woman. Right now, you're only left with me as your only son. If you're going to continue supporting Gloria like that and make me look like a fool, who is going to inherit the Moreton family and the Chamber of Commerce? Don't tell me you're really willing to hand the family over to a woman who will be marrying out. You, Jeffrey slammed the report in his hand on the table and glared straight at him. Cyril, this fearless and unfilial thing, actually dared to talk to him like this. His blood rushed into his head, and he suddenly felt a little faint. Cyril, who was still a little fearful, became completely fearless after seeing that reaction. He scoffed, Father, Big Brother would never inherit the family's property. All he cares about is his students. If you don't wish to see the huge Moreton family inheritance fall into the hands of others, you should start grooming me. Only I can let the Moreton family continue its legacy. Scram! Get out! Jeffrey threw the report on the table at Cyril. Cyril dodged to the side and glanced at Jeffrey, who was lying in the chair with his eyes closed. He smirked, picked the report up, and put it back on the table with a smile as he said, Since Father isn't feeling well, I will take my leave. The Chamber's year-end gala is just a few days away. I will ask the board members to take a stand and kick Gloria out of the board. After saying that, Cyril left quickly before Jeffrey exploded again. Jeffrey pulled out a small bottle from a drawer and twisted the cap open with his trembling hands. He lifted his head and took a big gulp. After a long while, he let out a long breath. The redness on his face faded away slowly. He opened his eyes, and the usually sharp and imposing pair of eyes had a hint of desolation in them. Was I really wrong back then? Geoffrey looked out of the window as he got lost in his thoughts. In the past, in order to make Lance inherit the family's inheritance, he forced him to do many things, which led to Lance going to a chaos school to become a teacher, giving up his right to the inheritance. All these years, he had been grooming Cyril in order to make the Moreton family continue flourishing, putting his hopes and dreams on him almost as though he was the only heir. With such a status put on him, Cyril was naturally fearless. He would go around merrymaking, and did not put any effort into running the company. Can I only hand the family over to that lad? Geoffrey frowned. His heart wavered a little before a figure flashed in his mind. Gloria, Geoffrey murmured. He tapped lightly on the table. This lady's recent performance did catch him by surprise. He did not expect her to make Blue Suede Textile Shop, which had been making a loss for several years, profit so quickly. Just before today, he had never really considered allowing Gloria to inherit the Moreton family. Geoffrey's gaze became solemn once again as he scoffed, "Ha, young brat, your dad is still alive, and you already have the guts to challenge me. Since Ian, that old fart, can hand the Buffett family over to the young lass, sheer, don't you think that I can hand Moreton over to Gloria? Rather than handing it over to that wastrel who would only cause chaos in the family, why don't I hand it over to Gloria, who is more capable? That lass is meticulous and quite talented. If I were to put in more effort into grooming her, she wouldn't be any worse than Lance." Maynard, Geoffrey called out towards the door. Maynard opened the door and walked in. "Call Mars over," Geoffrey instructed. "Yes," Maynard replied respectfully and turned to leave. "Mr. Cyril, did the talk with your father not go smoothly?" said a middle-aged man who was standing in a pavilion of the Moreton Manor with a smile as he watched Cyril walk over quickly. It was pretty much what Chief Bolton expected. Although the old man was very angry, all he could do was get me to scram. It seems like he had never thought of handing Moreton and the Chamber of Commerce to Gloria, Cyril said with a soothing laugh. After living under the oppression of Geoffrey for so many years, he had finally gotten back at him today. Chief Geoffrey mocked old Master Ian's decision to hand the Buffett family over to Sheer more than once. How could he hand the family over to a daughter, what more a granddaughter? "The position of the chief of the Moreton family is yours for sure, Mr. Cyril," Bolton said with a smile, looking as though it was all within his expectations. Cyril was elated. As he looked at Bolton, he said, "Chief Bolton, you've already promised to help me secure the position of chief. The first step in doing so is to kick Gloria out. This wouldn't be a problem, right? Don't worry. The Mars family and Dodge's family are still quite influential in the chamber. Besides, everyone knows that you will be the chief of the Moreton family sooner or later. As long as you request it, the board members are sure to agree. All we need is half of the board members to vote Gloria out, and even the president would not be able to stop us." Bolton stroked his mustache and looked at Cyril as he said, "However, after that's done, Mr. Cyril, what you promised, don't worry, Chief Bolton. As long as I can inherit the Moreton family and become the head of the family, I will definitely help you become the president of the chamber during the next election," Cyril said with a nod. "Very well. Mr. Cyril, you're indeed a smart person. I'll make a trip over to the Dodge's family right now." Bolton's smile became even brighter before he left. "Father, why must we help Cyril? This fellow is not trustworthy. You can't believe his words." In a lavish horse-drawn carriage, a young person looked at Bolton. "Cyril is just an imbecile who cannot be groomed. As long as he becomes the chief of the Moreton family, it will just be a matter of time before we eat him up whole. Since that's the case, why don't we just give him a hand?" Bolton scoffed. "It's enough to have one Sheer. If we have another Gloria, then it will really be impossible for the Mars family to make our mark. Chapter 1132 Job Title, Junior Chopper. As noon was approaching, the sound of the door knocking and Gina's voice were heard. Mag opened the door, and Gina walked in with Elizabeth, empty-handed. "Gina, didn't you go to collect shark's fins?" Mag looked out. There were no shark's fins outside. "Mr. Mag, you're really Gina's benefactor." Gina pounced at Mag agitatedly and wrapped her legs around him like an octopus naturally. Baffled, Mag looked at Gina, who was hugging him agitatedly. "With the help of the magical weapon, the nether sharks who invaded Lantist were all killed by our people. According to your wishes, the remaining ones were all kept in a fish farm to rear. There were almost no deaths among the merfolk during this invasion, and none of the cities were badly damaged by the nether sharks. This was all possible because of you." Gina looked up at Mag as though she was looking at an honorable and respectable god. "That's great." Mag's eyes also lit up when he heard that. It was great that the merfolk of Lantist would not have to be slaughtered by the nether sharks, and the deep-sea fish farm also successfully established the supply chain for nether sharks' fins and lips. How did he do that? He could actually subdue such a powerful magic beast and solve the problem a powerful race could not solve for centuries. Elizabeth looked at Mag curiously as though it was her first time knowing him. She had originally thought that he was just an ordinary human chef who came to Mamie restaurant to work because Mia invited him to. Now, she did not think that Mag seemed like an ordinary human. Whether it was his calmness when facing powerful customers or the negotiation with the high priest of Lantist on the ocean surface, all of them seemed to reveal the extraordinary side of him. This man seemed to be hiding a lot of abilities, making people constantly surprised and curious. "But, where are the shark's fins?" Mag asked Gina. "Oh." Gina quickly let go of Mag and pulled out a small blue crystal ball with a smile as she said, "Because there were too many shark's fins, I couldn't bring all of them back, so the high priest passed me this crystal ball so that I can use it to store the shark's lips and shark's fins." Mag looked at the crystal ball the size of a marble in Gina's hand. It was azure blue like the vast ocean. It did look similar to the crystal ball that the high priest had with him, just a lot smaller. It seemed like it was also a space magical tool. "You said that there were a lot, how many?" Mag asked. Gina thought for a while, and answered, "Around 500 sets. If I were to let them all out, it could fill this entire kitchen up." Mag observed a moment of silence for the nether shark tribe. After that, he looked at Gina and said, "Then take 50 sets out first. I need to roast them dry. I still have to make 2 more Buddha jumps over the wall today. I'm here for work." Camilla pushed the door open and entered. She glanced and greeted everyone casually and walked straight into the kitchen. When she saw no one in the kitchen, she turned back to look at Mag in surprise, and asked, "Where's Miss Ferris?" "The one who taught me to cut the vegetables." Mag looked at Camilla, and said, "She left. From today onwards, you will be fully in charge of the preparation of the ingredients. Your job title, Junior Chopper." Elle left. Camilla was stunned. She pointed at the list of ingredients at the side and raised her pitch. "That would mean that I have to cut all these vegetables up by myself." Mag replied, "That's Ferris's job every day. If you find it too difficult, I can do a small part of it." Camilla waved her hand, and confidently said, "Humph, no need for that. It's such a simple job, why would it be too difficult for me?" Mag glanced at his watch, and said, "There's still an hour before we start our business. You can start now." "Humph," Camilla snorted. She went upstairs to get changed, and then quickly entered the kitchen. She grabbed 10 knives and started slicing the ingredients. "From tomorrow morning onwards, our restaurant will provide free breakfast for the cleaners." Mag made the announcement during lunch. "For free, that means we won't be collecting money from them?" Yabimiya said in shock. The rest also looked at Mag. That would not be a small sum of money judging from the prices on Mamie Restaurant's menu. Mag nodded slightly. The cleaners start their work at 4 a.m. The weather is so cold, but they can only have breakfast that is frozen like ice, and they don't even have a sip of warm water to drink. I felt that I should do something about it, so I went to the person in charge to discuss providing breakfast for them at least until the winter is over. They're so pitiful. I even saw an old man fall in the snow previously. Luckily I managed to dodge in time, and the uncle at the side helped him to the hospital. I haven't seen him after that, Amy said sympathetically. Mag looked at Amy in shock. He did not think that he was once so close to bankruptcy. Boss, at what time do we provide breakfast? Is it the same as the restaurant's operating hours? Yabimiya asked. No, we agreed on 7 a.m. every morning, but I have already settled everything. There's no need for you all to worry. Your working hours will not change, Mag said with a shake of his head. Boss, you're such a nice person. Yabimiya gave Mag a thumbs up with a smile as she said, then I will come to the restaurant earlier from tomorrow morning onwards too. Is this fellow trying to make himself look better? Those humans sweeping the floor aren't even slaves. It's just a job, what's there to be pitiful about them? Camilla glanced at Mag and pouted in disdain. Humans just like to make a mountain out of a molehill. My working hours will be the same as Mia's, Elizabeth said coldly. Since you're coming early, then I will get more sleep. The bed is so comfortable in winter I don't even want to get up, Babla said. I will, wake up early. Gina raised her hand as she stuttered the words of the common tongue out before she gave Mag a big smile. I'll wake up early too. Anna raised her little hand as well. Amy thought for a while, and seriously said, since you're all going to wake up early, I will sleep in a little more for you. Otherwise, you will all be lethargic. Meow. Ugly Duckling put its two front paws on Amy's stool and meowed at her. It's all right, Ugly Duckling, I will sleep in for you too. Feel free to wake up early, Amy consoled. Mag. Please accept it. The bald middle-aged man shook his head, and said, no. There are so many customers here who could be our witness, and we are going to tell everyone that our Sith restaurant's freshwater seafood soup is the real champion of the soup rankings. So, the Food Association will rearrange the rankings again. There are so many customers here who are still misled by the wrong rankings on the delicious cuisine rankings. The top spot is ours by right, and these customers should be lining up outside of Sith restaurant. Boss, shouldn't we speak up for what is rightfully ours? Sith was silent after looking at the hundreds of people lining up outside Mamie restaurant. Although Sith restaurant's business was also very brisk now, it still wasn't comparable to Mamie restaurants. If Sith restaurant ever achieved such standards, he would reach the pinnacle of his life too. All right. Let's go and give our letter of challenge now. We will have a fair and square duel to decide who's the number one on the soup rankings. Sith's gaze became determined, and he strode to Mamie restaurant's entrance decisively. The bald man quickly caught up with him. Who are they? Line cutters. The customers in the extremely long line were looking at the two people walking toward the door with curiosity. If I remember correctly, isn't that the boss of Sith restaurant? What's he doing here? The freshwater seafood soup at Sith restaurant is quite good. Yes. They use freshly caught freshwater seafood. Their ingredients are good and the portion is great too. If we are just about soup, that is one of Chaos City's rare delicacies. Very soon, people in the line began to recognize Sith, and started a discussion. Sith was about to knock on the restaurant's door, but the bells on the door jingled, and the door opened from the inside. Mag, who opened the door, saw a middle-aged man in a black chef's uniform holding his hand up. Perplexed, he asked, "Excuse me, can I help you?" "Hello, Mr. Mag. I am the boss cum head chef of the Sith restaurant." Sith extended his hand to Mag. "Hello, boss Sith. Mag shook his hand. He recalled that the freshwater seafood soup from Sith restaurant had come in second on the soup rankings. This boss Sith came here in a rush, and definitely didn't look like he was here to have his meal. Sith retrieved his hand and got to the point with Mag. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your restaurant taking all the top spots in the current delicious cuisine rankings. I have come today to challenge you for the top spot of the soup rankings. Your braised chicken and rice is indeed very outstanding, but I believe my freshwater seafood soup isn't second to any other soup. Hence, I would like to have a duel with you to decide the real number one on the soup rankings. Oh, he came for a challenge. Mag got his point. Ever since he gained his reputation after winning against the chef of Dukas restaurant, he had not been challenged for quite some time. He didn't expect anybody to come and challenge him after he conquered all the 6 rankings. He was really rather surprised. Yes. This is the letter of challenge, Mr. Mag. Please accept it. Sith passed the letter of challenge in his hands over. Mag took the letter of challenge after a moment of hesitation. He had a quite neutral impression of this boss Sith. People with exceptional skills could be a little prideful. The first and the second were natural enemies. A duel was inevitable if one of them wasn't convinced. He glanced through the letter of challenge. It was similar to what Sith had said. The theme of the duel was soup. Famous culinary critics and the president of the Food Association would be invited as their judges to conduct a professional duel. And the wager was the number 1 spot on the soup rankings. Frankly speaking, Mag wasn't fond of such meaningless challenges. But if he rejected it, he would damage his reputation, so he couldn't help but think about it. Wow! He actually came to challenge Boss Mag. This boss Sith is a little crazy. The duel between number 1 and number 2 on the soup rankings should be a very exciting one. After the release of Buddha Jumps Over the Wall, no other soups would taste better, right? This would most likely be a crushing defeat. The customers began to discuss among themselves after they heard Sith's words. The bald middle-aged man who was following Sith sarcastically said to Mag, "Don't tell me you are afraid? If you won't accept the challenge, then tell the Food Association and let them change the ranking of the soup rankings. Let Sith Restaurant's freshwater seafood soup have the top spot. Then, we won't force you to do anything." Sith looked at that bald man with displeasure, but this concerned the future of Sith Restaurant, so he didn't comment at all. He simply looked at Mag and waited for his answer. Mag looked at that bald guy with a smirk, and accepted the letter of challenge. He smiled at Sith. "Since Boss Sith invited me so graciously, I will accept this letter of challenge. However, since you set up the challenge and set the rules, I will decide on the time and location. Is that all right with you?" Sith was taken aback by Mag's decisiveness. After a brief consideration, he nodded. "Let's set the challenge at 4:30 p.m. this evening at Mamie Restaurant's entrance. My restaurant will start its dinner service at 5 p.m. sharp, so please get your cooking preparation ready earlier, Boss Sith." "Oh, yes. There's something I want to inform you about beforehand. I have already categorized the braised chicken and rice from the soup category as a main dish. I have just introduced a new soup item called Buddha Jumps Over the Wall yesterday. Because this soup takes 1 whole day to cook, I won't be cooking on the spot. Instead, I will be presenting a completed item straight away," Mag continued. "A new soup item?" Sith was even more surprised. The braised chicken soup was already acknowledged by the Food Association. He didn't expect Mag to skip that and use a newly introduced soup item to duel with him. "Oh, regarding the wager. Apart from the top spot on the soup rankings, I want to add something," Mag said. Sith warily asked Mag, "What do you want to add?" "The loser will have to pay the other party 10,000 copper coins, Mag said smilingly. "I always come here to line up at this time. Seems like there will be a free show later. Anybody wanna bet? I bet Boss Mag is going to win." Nobody will be idiotic enough to set up a bet when there is no doubt about the outcome. The customers were getting excited after watching Mag accept the letter of challenge. 10,000 copper coins. Sith was stunned. He thought Mag was going to add a huge wager. The boss of Ricky's rotisserie had lost his entire shop to Boss Mag when he challenged him in the past. He didn't expect Mag to only add on 10,000 copper coins. Ah! Seems like this chap is really afraid. The bald guy at the side looked at Mag with disdain. His gaze began to get heated. As an old employee of Sith restaurant, he was waiting for the freshwater seafood soup to get the #1 spot so he could encourage his boss to open a second restaurant. Then, he would be the new manager of the new shop, and the boss would teach him the freshwater seafood soup recipe that he had guarded so closely. Yes, 10,000 copper coins. Mag nodded. All right, I agree. Sith nodded after a while. I have accepted your letter of challenge. You can go now, Boss Sith. I have to start my service now. Mag kept the letter of challenge, and then opened the door wide. He stepped aside with a smile, and said, Welcome to Mamie Restaurant. Do you need my help, Boss Mag? Krasuo asked when he reached the entrance and glanced at Sith. I can help too. Amy came forward eagerly. There's no need to, Mag quickly replied. He was slightly afraid that Krasuo and Amy would euthanize the two of them with a fireball. That would be too cruel. Go for it, Mr. Mag. Gloria stopped at the entrance and encouraged Mag with a smile and a clenched fist. This chap. What has he done to deserve a smile from my adorable Miss Gloria? Camilla stared at Mag aggrievedly from a corner. There's no true love between opposite sex, she said through clenched teeth. Thank you. Mag nodded with a smile as he felt an inexplicable chill up his back. Mag greeted his regular customers warmly and ignored Sith. The bald guy was annoyed, and wanted to argue. This rude fellow, that's enough. He's already very gracious and magnanimous. I don't think I could do what he did if I were in his position, Sith interrupted the bald guy's words, and took a good look at Mag. Although this man was young, his calmness unsettled him. We have to visit the Food Association and a few culinary experts. All right. The bald guy retrieved his gaze grudgingly and quickly caught up with Sith. Boss Mag, do you have news about Miss Shirley? Or, did she write to you? Constantine asked Mag expectantly when he reached him. Mag got a shock when he saw Constantine. This famous swinging bachelor had always been particular about his image, but now he looked emaciated with dark eye circles, bloodshot eyes, and messy hair and beard. He resembled a homeless man. She didn't write to us. Mag shook his head. However, he couldn't bear to see Constantine like this. Why was he having this one-sided love? After all, hers could be bigger than Constantine's if she took it out. There is still no news. Constantine seemed to have lost all his energy instantly. He swayed, and only managed to stable himself by grasping onto the door. I am so regretful. I regret that I didn't have the courage to profess my feelings for her. I only realized her importance after I lost her. Constantine started sobbing with tears flowing all over his face. What a passionate man! Indeed. There are not many men like him nowadays. Many regulars knew about Constantine. He had been coming frequently to ask about Shirley recently. The customers naturally still remembered the beautiful but quiet server, so they couldn't help but lament when they saw Constantine like this. Constantine, male, 33 years old. Due to love sickness causing severe insomnia, lack of appetite, a sharp decline in body functions, and poor immunity, his life could be in peril. Is this guy Romeo? He actually got lovesick. Mag raised his eyes when he saw the omniscient doors test result. It seemed like Shirley's departure had dealt Constantine a big blow. He pondered for a while, and then said to the devastated Constantine, Mr. Constantine, Shirley said she would come back, but it would be a few years later. She really will come back again. Constantine jerked his head up to look at Mag as if he was holding onto a lifeline. Smiling, Mag nodded. However, looking at an elf's lifespan, no matter how many years later it is, Shirley's appearance won't change much, and if you continue to live like this, Mr. Constantine, I am afraid it will be your funeral when you meet again. Constantine stared at his thin and pale hands, and was stunned momentarily. He was so consumed by his sadness and pining that he had neglected his body. He didn't realize that he was already so weakened. No. I have to remain healthy before Miss Shirley's return. I want to delay my process of aging. I don't want to age so fast, otherwise Miss Shirley won't be able to recognize me when she's back. Constantine quickly made up his mind, and said to Mag, "Thank you, Mr. Mag. I will live my life properly so I can see Miss Shirley again, and tell her personally all the words that I didn't say to her before." After speaking, he strode into the restaurant and sat down at his usual seat. "I hope you can continue to live with fortitude when your confession fails." Mag shrugged and continued to welcome his next customer with a smile. "The men's charging station, Mamie Restaurant, here I come again." A man who was fumbling walked toward Mamie Restaurant with a blazing look in his eyes. A newlywed lady has a voracious sexual appetite. Vicenio had already experienced this saying. What he didn't expect was the honeymoon period would last so long. The shrew at home was getting increasingly hungry. She was draining him dry every day on the bed. If it weren't for Mamie Restaurant providing him with the energy of 2 Ruggiemos, he would have already died on the bed. "I have to add another Ruggiemo today to compensate for what I have lost," Vicenio vowed in his heart and quickened his steps. A horse-drawn carriage stopped in front of the restaurant. An exquisite face was revealed behind the curtain, and the seductive eyes were following Vicenio. She laughed flirtatiously, and whispered to herself, "Hey, so this is where he sneaks out to every day. I want to see what drug this restaurant is selling that makes him stronger and stronger every day." Chapter 1135 Who can handle that? "Sure." Yabimiya nodded. Just then, an aroma wafted in, and a voluptuous woman took a seat beside Vicenio with a smile as she said, "I want 3 Ruggiemo and a tofu pudding too." Vicenio, upon smelling that familiar fragrance, opened his mouth wide in disbelief and turned his head over slowly to look at the woman sitting beside him. She was looking at him. He jumped up like a rat whose tail was stepped on, and exclaimed, "Honey! What are you doing here?" Everyone in the restaurant turned over to look in their direction. Noise and commotion were not allowed in Mamie Restaurant. Vicenio's skinny look was no better than Constantine's. He was pale and looked very frail. In contrast, the woman who was sitting beside him had flushed cheeks and a voluptuous figure. She was beautiful and her eyes were full of tender gentleness. "Honey, you've frightened me," that young lady said coquettishly and shyly as she patted her chest lightly, making her bosom sway. "Who can handle that?" Numerous men swallowed subconsciously as they looked at Vicenio. Should they pity or envy him? Vicenio quickly realized that he seemed to have overreacted. He recalled Mamie Restaurant's rules, and quickly sat back down and apologized to Yabimiya, who was still standing there. After that, he looked at Bonnie and softly asked, "Honey, why are you here? Weren't you sleeping? How can I sleep after you leave?" Bonnie hammered Vicenio's shoulder with her little fists, and said with grievance, "So I followed you out and saw you enter this restaurant. I happened to be hungry, so I followed you in. Why do you look unhappy? Does it make you unhappy to eat with me? How can that be? I just saw that you were very tired, so I didn't wake you up." Vicenio wanted to give himself a slap. How could he not realize that Bonnie was following him? "No, you're the one who had it rough." Bonnie pulled out a silk handkerchief from her bosom and wiped Vicenio's forehead. "Look, you're already perspiring." "I just passed by. It's just a little perspiration." Vicenio's voice was trembling. This was a tigress he had at home, not a shy little kitten. She would only put on an act in front of others. On the bed, she was a totally different person. Cough, cough. Mia, who was left hanging at the side, interrupted their private moment, and said, "So it's 3 rigiamo and a tofu pudding for each of you, right?" "Yes, I want the same as him." Bonnie nodded with a smile. She looked at Mia and praised, "Miss, you're really pretty." After that, she glanced at Vicenio. Did this scoundrel come over to this restaurant every day because of the pretty service staff? Vicenio could only pretend not to understand Bonnie's gaze, and quickly said, "No, no, honey, the rigiamo isn't that good. It's not to your liking. You should have a rainbow fried rice. That looks good and tastes good. Also, for the tofu pudding, you should get the sweet one. Although I am team savory, the sweet tofu pudding should suit your taste more." Rainbow fried rice. Upon hearing that, Bonnie's eyes lit up. The name itself was interesting. Could this restaurant really have made fried rice with the beautiful rainbow fried rice? However, why did this scoundrel stop her from eating the rigiamo? Bonnie was suspicious. "Honey, order your food quickly, the other customers are still waiting." Vicenio was a little guilty, so he directly told Yabimiya, "Get her a plate of Yangzhou fried rice and a sweet tofu pudding. That will be all." "All right, please wait for a moment." Yabimiya nodded and turned to walk to the next customer. Vicenio heaved a sigh of relief. The medicinal effect of the rigiamo was too strong. He could only be on par with Bonnie after eating it. If Bonnie was to eat it too, he could not imagine what the outcome would be like. Bonnie looked around the restaurant. The interior was designed to be comfortable, and the distance between tables was just nice. She retracted her gaze and looked at Vicenio a little sadly as she said, "Honey, you're really good at choosing places, but why didn't you bring me over to a restaurant with such great ambience in the past? You're just eating on your own, and didn't even care about me. That's so upsetting. Actually, I've also recently just discovered this restaurant. I was planning to give it a try and bring you over next time," Vicenio said nervously as beads of perspiration started forming on his forehead again. Amy was walking past with Ugly Duckling in her hands when she suddenly stopped, and curiously asked, "Mr. Feeble, don't you come over every day?" "Little boss, you've got it wrong." Vicenio's face turned dark. As he saw Bonnie's smile change slowly, he explained with a stutter, "Ho! Honey, listen to me, all right, enough said." "You have more than enough time to explain when we get back," Bonnie said magnanimously. Vicenio sighed silently inside. He could already expect what would happen to him after he went back today. Your rigiamo, Yangzhou fried rice, and tofu puddings. Not long later, Yabimiya came over with a tray and served their food. Vicenio quickly took the 3 rigiamo over to his side, and then placed the Yangzhou fried rice and sweet tofu pudding in front of Bonnie with a smile as he said, "Honey, here's your rainbow fried rice and your sweet tofu pudding. It's said that your skin will become better after eating this tofu pudding. And I was wondering why your skin is getting more and more supple. So you've been eating these tonics behind my back every day. Are you intending to look for other rich ladies to be your sugar mummy after I've become old and ugly?" Bonnie questioned Vicenio. Although Vicenio really was like a gigolo, he never had such an intention. Just Bonnie alone was enough to make his legs weak. How would he have the strength and energy to look for other rich ladies? He only ate the tofu pudding because it was really very good. "All right, I trust you." Bonnie watched Vicenio for a while and nodded before he could even explain himself. After that, she picked up the spoon and put the beautiful fried rice, which looked as though the rainbow was really cut up and put inside, into her mouth. Oh! What a delightful taste! Just after chewing for a while, Bonnie was pleasantly surprised. The richness of each ingredient exploded in her mouth, and the more she chewed, the better it tasted. It was the taste of bliss. After swallowing her food, she could not help but scoop another mouthful up as she could not resist immersing herself in the delicacy. Vicenio watched Bonnie beam with happiness and heaved a sigh of relief. He picked up the Rigiamo, the 2 layers of soft and crispy aromatic biji bread with the tender braised meat in between. The fragrance of the juicy meat oozed out with just one bite, making every taste bud on his tongue tingle with joy. He closed his eyes and felt the blood in his body rush to every part of his body, filling up all the emptiness, making him feel replenished. Chapter 1136 Dear, you are so naughty. How could she eat so quickly? Vicenio was shocked as he was only halfway through his second Rigiamo. He slowly turned his body to block Bonnie's vision, and quickly took a big bite of the Rigiamo. He had to finish it as soon as possible. Dear, looks like you are not able to finish that. I will help you with the last one. One hand glided across his body before snatching that Rigiamo away. No. Vicenio was alarmed as he glared at the hand that grabbed the Rigiamo slowly retracted back. He forced himself to stay calm while he said to Bonnie, Dear, this Rigiamo isn't suitable for you. Why don't you have an ice cream? That is also something very nice. No way. I have to find out what this Rigiamo tastes like today. Bonnie shook her head, and then took a bite of the Rigiamo in front of Vicenio's gradually widening eyes. Crack! The crispy skin gave out a light cackling sound, and the braised meat in between the soft and fragrant biji bread released its juice instantly. Different from the Yangzhou fried rice delightful scrumptiousness, the meat was full and domineering as if a pail of water was splashed over boiling oil. The taste buds were brought to life instantaneously. What was more unbelievable was that after swallowing it, it became a fiery hot breath that ran on a rampage throughout the body. As if a tiny monster had gone in, it made the person restless. The whole body felt heated up. Bonnie's mouth opened slightly, and she gave out a moan of rapture with a flushing face. Rip at the same time, a distinct sound of cloth ripping could be heard. Bonnie's collar was burst open, and her ample breasts almost spilled out. Oh! This feeling is simply too lovely. Bonnie didn't notice her ripped clothes, as she had only had one thought left in her mind. She didn't feel uncomfortable after the initial heat had disappeared. Instead, she felt warm and tingling, and the tiredness from last night's and this morning's fierce battles was totally gone. She even had the sensation that she could go for another 300 rounds. OSH*T. Vicenio reached out to cover Bonnie's exposed chest, and his mind went completely blank. It was over for him today. Bonnie opened her eyes and looked at Vicenio seductively. She hit him in his chest with her fist, and coquettishly said, Dear, you are so naughty. You actually keep such good stuff all to yourself. Vicenio wanted to cry. I'll teach you a lesson when we get back. Bonnie licked her lips and continued eating the Rigiamo. I didn't expect a restaurant that looks so decent actually sells this kind of drugs, and it's made to taste so good. This boss is really a genius. Bonnie's gaze moved toward the kitchen. No wonder her husband had gotten more and more formidable recently. He had come here for a boost every single day. Vicenio finished the 2 Rigiamos in a daze and settled the bill. He followed Bonnie out of the restaurant, distracted. Listen to me, dear. The weather is lovely today, why don't we? Vicenio said with a straight face after boarding the carriage. Why don't we do something exciting? We haven't done it on a moving carriage before. Bonnie had a devilish smile. She was already lying atop of him, and began to undress in herself. The driver driving the carriage felt an unusual rocking and weird sounds coming from the carriage. He decided to concentrate on his driving, and continued the journey calmly. Are you asking me to be the judge of the duel? In the Food Association building, Robert was staring at Sith with surprise. Sith nodded. Yes. Mr. Mag has already accepted my challenge, so I would like to invite you to be our main judge for this duel. The first runner-up was challenging the champion of the soup rankings. This was the first duel after the Delicious Cuisine Rankings was announced. The current Delicious Cuisine Rankings created a big hoo-ha initially when Mamie Restaurant conquered all the 6 rankings. They were mostly bad reviews and defamations of the Delicious Cuisine Rankings. However, as time went on, this sincerely done ranking managed to gain the foodies' recognition with all the delicacies. Even the most controversial Mamie Restaurant had turned the bad reviews around after more and more customers tried it for themselves and spread the words of praise. It had basically set itself up as the best restaurant in Chaos City. However, although everything was good with Mamie Restaurant, the soup part was indeed a little weak. Robert was also Mamie Restaurant's regular customer. He had eaten the braised chicken and rice a couple times. The taste was good and the soup was delicious. But to say that it was a soup dish was a bit too much, as it had only a small amount to cover the rice. The Sith restaurant's freshwater seafood soup was indeed one of the best in soup dishes. Robert also had it frequently. After pondering, Robert nodded in agreement. Since this is the case, I will agree to be the judge of this soup duel. Culinary arts needed innovation so they could bring more tasty food to the people. To make the culinary scene more vibrant, reasonable competition would be to promote innovation. Boss Mag was indeed undeniably a genius. Every dish of his was very imaginative. His revolutionary cooking style had rejuvenated the entire culinary scene. Since both parties had already agreed, he, the president of the Food Association, being present at the duel could encourage more chefs to innovate. Happy, Sith quickly replied, "We will bother you, then." The time of the duel is 4:30 p.m. today at Mamie Restaurant's entrance. After coming out of the Food Association, Sith went to visit the vile-tongued critic, Febid. "What? You want to duel with Boss Mag?" Febid, who was writing his manuscript, lifted his head and looked at Sith as if he was an idiot. "Are you feeling itchy?" Sith wanted to explain himself. "Mr. Febid, okay, since I am free this afternoon and have planned to go and eat at Mamie Restaurant tonight, I might as well be your judge," Febid interrupted Sith, and then continued writing his manuscript. "You may leave. I still have to work." "Thank you." Sith turned and went out. Although he knew that was how Febid's character was, he was still spurred on by his sarcasm. Sith clenched his fists, and determinedly said to himself, "My freshwater seafood soup will not lose to anybody." Sith went to find another 3 rather well-known culinary experts, and invited them to be the duel's judges before returning to the restaurant to prepare for the duel. At 4 o'clock, there was already a crowd gathering outside of Mamie Restaurant, waiting for a good show. But, at this moment, there was only a stove and a dark brown wine urn that was placed over the stove. "Yes. I came here to support the Sith Restaurant's freshwater seafood soup. It is the irreplaceable #1 soup in my heart. I heard the boss is going to use a new dish to compete with Boss Sith. He is a little too confident. There is no aroma at all. Is he just cooking water?" Many in the crowd came to watch a show after hearing about the duel. This restaurant was still closed, and there was nobody in sight. There was only a stove set up at the entrance with a wine urn cooking on top of it. The surrounding crowd was discussing in hushed voices to pass time before the duel could start. The restaurant's regulars behaved rather calmly. Even though not many people had tried the Buddha jumps over the wall yesterday, the aroma that caused a prisoner to break out from the prison next door, and resulted in the simultaneous appearance of the city lord, Lord of the Grey Temple, and the warden lingered in everybody's mind. "Excuse me, Sith Restaurant is coming through." Right at this moment, a horse-drawn carriage came, a bald guy was yelling loudly on it. Everyone gave way, and the carriage stopped at the restaurant's entrance. Sith came out from the carriage, and was stunned by the wine urn in front of the door. Could this be the soup that Mag was going to use to duel with him? This was the first time that he had ever seen cookware like this. All he knows is using unusual things to attract attention. The bald guy smirked as he began to offload all kinds of kitchenware with a young chapter very soon. a very professional stove was set up in front of Mamie restaurant. Pots and pans and all kinds of different knives and kitchenware were present. That's right. That looks like a professional chef. How is putting an urn here competing? Everyone's interest was piqued after watching the Sith restaurant's people work. Cooking was nothing unusual, but creating delicious food was a very demanding art form. The same kitchenware, the same ingredients, and even the same steps could result in totally different taste when different people made it. Sith restaurant had become a well-known restaurant from a small restaurant in Chaos City because it had ranked second on the soup rankings. Everyone was curious about how the famous freshwater seafood soup was made. Sith looked at the tightly shut restaurant's door, and retrieved his gaze. He began to check on the kitchenware and spices, and then said to the bald guy, "Are the ingredients ready?" "I have already told them. They should be on their way here now. Old Joseph always fishes at the cleanest area. The quality is the best." The bald guy nodded. "Boss Sith, I have delivered the fish and shrimp you requested." Right at this moment, a voice spoke up, and everyone split up to let an old man with white hair carrying a wooden bucket through. He heaved a breath of relief after putting down the bucket. There were river shrimp, fish, and flower clams swimming happily in half a bucket full of clear and clean water. "Wow, this river is really very clean, and these freshwater seafood items are so fresh too. These were just caught from the river? Only the freshly caught ones are so energetic. The Sith restaurant is indeed using the freshest ingredients. We can see how clean and fresh they are. No wonder the soup always tastes so fresh and tasty." The people stepped forward to have a look and started praising them. "Thank you very much, old Joseph." Sith also smiled after seeing the freshwater seafood in the wooden bucket. Old Joseph always delivered the best quality freshwater seafood. This time was no exception too. The bald guy paid old Joseph, and then poured the fishes and shrimps carefully into a pre-prepared wooden basin. After the stove and the ingredients were set up, Sith took a look at the time. It was still 10 minutes before the agreed time. "Oh, they are already all set up." Robert walked out from the crowd, and looked at Sith who was all prepared. His gaze then landed on that wine urn set up at the entrance, and he was taken aback. What was Boss Mag trying to do this time? There are so many people here. Are they afraid nobody will know that they are going to lose? Febid said with annoyance, and arranged his clothes after he squeezed in from the crowd with much difficulty. A middle-aged woman wearing a white mink coat walked out from the crowd, and smilingly said, "The fight between the first and the second on the soup rankings is really one duel that I look forward to." "Yes. I heard that Mr. Mag has a new item again. I am looking forward to it too." Old Master Avis walked out with a smile and greeted Robert. "All my respected seniors are here. It makes me look out of place. Boss Sith should have told me, or how else would I dare to show off in front of you?" A young man in blue long robes walked out smilingly. "Wow, what an amazing lineup of judges. The President of Food Association, Mr. Robert, the vicious food critic, Mr. Febid, the Queen of the Culinary who just returned from Rodu, Candice, former chef of Reed's Roast Pig, Old Master Avis, and Randy who just became the special columnist for the magazine Meatitarian. This lineup is indeed awe-inspiring." The surrounding crowd was all shocked to see the 5 people who came. They didn't expect a duel like this would attract judges of such high standards. It seemed like Boss Sith really wanted the experts' verification on the outcome of this duel if he invited them. Robert glanced at his watch, and doubtfully said, "It's almost time. Boss Mag is still not coming out yet. Seems like the boss of this restaurant is quite proud. He is still not coming out after the judges have arrived." Candice looked at the tightly shut door with a smile. Ding! Right at this time, the restaurant's door opened outwards, and Mag, who was wearing his chef's uniform, walked out. He was slightly shocked to see the huge crowd who had gathered to watch the duel. Then, his gaze landed on Robert and the gang. Smiling, he said, "All of you must be today's judges." "Yes, Boss Mag. The judges have arrived and the duel is about to start. Could you please provide seating for the judges? Sith said to Mag. It's my pleasure, Mag said, and then turned with a smile to the bald guy who was smirking at the side. My service staff are all ladies, can this strong gentleman help us move the tables and chairs, please? Me? The bald guy was taken aback. Just go. The duel is starting soon, Sith said when the other party was about to refuse. Yes. The bald guy swallowed his words. He called the two young servers to help place the few tables at the door together to make up the judges' table. All the judges took their seats. Robert was sitting in the middle. He said to both Mag and Sith, Boss Mag and Boss Sith are both exceptional chefs. Today, we are having a culinary duel with soup. The 5 of us will be your judges, and we will decide the outcome by voting. Do the 2 of you agree with this? This. Robert glanced at his watch, and said, all right, according to the agreement, this culinary duel will begin in 3 minutes. Please get ready. Sith went back to the cooking bench, and started his last preparatory work. Sith restaurant's workers and assistant chefs were all very nervous. After all, this duel would affect Sith restaurant's reputation and future. Whether it was success or failure, it all depended on this duel. In contrast to the nervousness of the people from Sith restaurant, the view on Mamie restaurant's side was completely different. Boss, please take a seat. Yabimiya brought a chair over and placed it by the fireplace. After that, she stood behind the chair. Thank you. Mag nodded slightly. He sat by the warm fireplace and crossed his legs comfortably as he closed his eyes. This fireplace was really well done. There was even a light scent from the fruit tree charcoal. All he needed to do for the Buddha jumps over the wall was to put it on top of the stove to stew. When the time was up, he just had to take it off the stove, so all that was left right now was to wait. Elizabeth and the others were also standing neatly in a row behind Mag, looking very relaxed. Amy brought a little stool over, and carried Ugly Duckling as she went over to sit beside Mag. She raised her little arms out, bringing Ugly Duckling towards the fireplace, scaring it so much that it tightly gripped her little arms, causing a roar of laughter. Anna stood at the side, grabbing Ugly Duckling's frantically swaying tail carefully in case it really ended up sending its tail into the fireplace. If that really happened, it would really become very ugly. Say, is this really a proper culinary duel? Why does it seem like the owner and employees of Mamie Restaurant are just here to enjoy a show? This owner is pretty honest. And all these staff, aren't they a little too pretty? What a winner in life! But aren't those 2 little girls a little too cute? Ah, that little kitty is so pitiful, I want to take its place. Outside Mamie Restaurant, there were already around 500 people gathering to watch. Most of them came especially to line up for food later. The rest came just to watch a show after hearing about the duel. However, everyone was surprised when they saw the crew of the Mamie Restaurant. Of course, most of them were attracted by Amy, who was teasing Ugly Duckling, and Anna, who was standing beside Amy. The cute little girl and that adorable ball of fur were certainly an attention grabber. The neat row of women also made people's eyes light up. They were already looking at Mag with jealousy and envy. That was because he looked way too relaxed, so much so that it felt like they were the real audience to this show. But wasn't he supposed to be the main character of this duel? Candace looked at Mag, and unhappily said, Mamie Restaurant's owner is quite pretentious. The duel is starting soon, but instead of making preparations, he even got himself a chair to sit on. To be able to obtain the title of the Queen of the Culinary in Rodu, Candace put in multiple times the effort men had. She got to where she was the top 10 most influential chefs in Rodu step by step amidst all the doubts and mockery. As a woman of action, she hated chefs who were all fluff. These fellows usually had bigger temper than capabilities, and would not be able to amount to anything. To her, Mag was arrogant and did not take this duel seriously. Has he already given up on the duel? Avis was also baffled as he looked at Mag. I find this owner pretty interesting. He is someone who knows how to enjoy life. Randy smiled. He looked at Mag and the 4 service staff members behind him of varying styles, and smiled even more broadly. It must be such enjoyment to dine in this restaurant. Sith glanced at the leisurely Mag, and then at the vat of wine on the stove at the side. Mag had already told him that the soup he was brewing would take a very long time, so he would start cooking beforehand. It seemed that this vat contained the soup that he would be competing with today. So pretentious. I'll see if he's still able to sleep when he loses, the bald man mumbled as he looked at Mag unhappily. Change the water and get ready to start cooking, Sith said calmly and retracted his gaze as he felt a sense of uneasiness. Although he was very confident in the freshwater seafood soup that was passed down by his ancestors, Mag's relaxed look made him uncertain. What exactly is this new product he is launching? Is it really better than braised chicken soup? Mr. Mag is a humble and polite person. He is also a chef who takes culinary arts very seriously. Mr. Sith told me that Mr. Mag would start cooking beforehand because the soup that he is making takes a lot of time. Both parties did not have any disagreements over it, Robert explained with a smile. Candace scoffed, and mocked, since the duration isn't the same, this is not a fair duel. I've never heard of such a weird culinary duel. Who can guarantee that he is the one who made this soup? Then what's the point of this duel? Yeah, isn't that too unfair? Before Boss Sith even starts, that owner had already started. Yeah, who knows who made this pot of soup? Someone else might have made it. The Queen of Culinary was sharp to pinpoint the problem immediately. After Candace spoke, the crowd became hyped up with curiosity. They quickly started looking for some loopholes and formed conspiracy theories. Why are all these people spouting nonsense? This is boss's hard work. Yabimiya looked at Candace angrily. How could this lady be a judge? It would be terrible if she was already on Sith's side before the duel even starts. Mamie Restaurant's regulars were all indignant when they heard the comments. Boss Mag getting someone to cook for him is probably the best joke I've heard the entire year. Harrison could not hold his laughter back. This comment also made the regulars of Mamie Restaurant burst into laughter. Mag, who was almost falling asleep, opened his eyes and smiled at Candace as he said, "Miss, I suggest you watch your words before you get the facts right. Boss Sith was the one who challenged me to the duel. He was also the one who suggested the theme and format for this duel. I set the time and location, and told him that the soup that I was making would take 5 hours to finish. In order not to waste everyone's time, I would start cooking first. As for getting someone else to cook on my behalf, please wake up. This is a duel between the first and second placing on the soup rankings. Mamie Restaurant is in the first place. May I ask, which rankings chef am I supposed to ask to help me make this pot of soup to take up this duel where the chef's dignity is on the line?" Chapter 1139. Is this a solo culinary skills performance? Candace was dumbfounded. Mag's words were like a slap to her face, blatantly mocking her intelligence. All of a sudden, rage started burning within her. But just as he had said, since this was a duel between the first and second, if he could find a chef better than Sith to help him, Sith would still not be first. Besides, the rules of the duel would stand as long as both parties agreed to them, and she could not say anything about that. Candace was pent up with anger, but she could not vent it. Her wrinkled face was red with fury, as she looked at that vat with a scoff. She said, "In my 40 years of cooking experience, I've never heard of any soup that requires more than 5 hours of cooking. It wouldn't even take that long to cook a magic beast's tendons until they become soft." Smiling, Mag replied, "It's all right, maybe you cannot understand why a soup would need more than 5 hours, and maybe you've never tried the deliciousness of a soup made by simmering bones over a small fire, but a chef using his own experience to mock other chefs' cooking methods is not a portrayal of knowledge or power. There are a lot of things that you've not heard of." "You?" Candace shook with anger. As a senior in the world of chefs, she was usually treated with a lot of respect. She only agreed to be the judge of this duel because Sith was very sincere just now. She did not think that she would be mocked by a young junior now. Ignoring Candace, Mag turned to say to Robert, "It's time for the duel. Considering that Boss Sith's time is a little tight, we should start the duel now." "All right, let the duel begin." Robert nodded, and that was how that argument ended. "Madam Candace, take it easy. We should focus on the duel first." Robert turned to Candace, who was beside him, and consoled her. "Humph, such a rude person would never be able to make anything delicious." Candace snorted. She had already decided to give her vote to Sith no matter what kind of soup Mag made. After she had returned to Chaos City, the only meal that she had eaten outside was the freshwater seafood soup from Sith restaurant. It was a pleasant surprise for her indeed. Even if it was in Rodu, this soup would be able to make it into the top 10 just under the soup rankings. This owner is quite impressive. He is sharp with his words, but not exactly ungentlemanly. He's a silent killer. Randy looked at Mag in shock. What a genius! He had yet to submit the Mediterranean article for this month. After staying at home for a month, he was having a writer's block, so part of the reason he agreed to Sith's request to be a judge today was to come out to look for some inspiration. At the same time, he intended to go through the meat category rankings on the Delicious Cuisine rankings. He only knew today that the rankings on the Delicious Cuisine rankings had changed. "Is this fellow trying to snatch my rice bowl?" Febid looked at Mag with increased caution. He felt as though he had met someone as good as he was at retorting. One Boss Mag is Boss Mag indeed. He's good at cooking and also good at talking. Ha ha ha. I've already become Boss Mag's fangirl. The regulars of Mamie restaurant were all hyped up and brimming with confidence after Mag burnt Candace. This guy is even willing to go against a judge. It looks like we'll win this today. The bald man snickered. There was no doubt that Candace's vote would go to Sith restaurant. Sith watched Mag and his heart felt heavier. He retracted his gaze. He took a deep breath to calm himself down, and picked up a pair of scissors to start preparing the fish and shrimp that were still flopping around as he officially began working on his freshwater seafood soup. Mag closed his eyes once again now that Candace did not say anything further. After a while, he opened his eyes again, and turned to ask the women behind him, "Are you hungry? Why don't we eat first?" The women were all stunned. Yes. Amy, who was playing with Ugly Duckling together with Anna, stood right up as she nodded her little head, and said, Me. Father, I want to eat. There's still half an hour anyway. Let's eat first. We'll have to start our business again later. It's not good to work on an empty stomach. Mag nodded, got up, and walked into the shop. The women all followed him into the restaurant. That's such a show-off. Everyone was dumbfounded by the group's sudden departure to eat. Brazen. Simply brazen. Candace said coldly. She had never heard of a candidate who went to eat while the judges were left hanging. Yet, how can he not bring us along? That's too much. Febid craned his neck and called out to Mag, "Boss Mag, bring some for me. It's not operation hours yet." "Please line up," Mag replied calmly. The door closed behind them slowly, leaving everyone else in shock. The food was already made, so when Mia and the others brought the dishes out, they could already begin eating. "Boss, isn't that a little too much? Wouldn't they vote for the other person because of this?" Mia asked worriedly. "It's all right. The duel is just a small thing anyway. We don't have to let it affect our usual eating and operating hours." Mag put some fish meat in Amy's bowl and continued eating. There might be more of these challenges to come in the future, but Mag had already decided to reject all the meaningless duels. He would rather spend time playing with Amy rather than waste his time and effort on such things. Outside the restaurant, hundreds of people gathered to watch this weird culinary duel. On one side, there was Boss Sith standing behind a professional cooking bench, preparing the fish and shrimp. As the aroma from the pot of soup grew stronger under his fluid motions, the audience started to gasp in awe. On the other side, there was a lone stove with a big brown vat on top of it. There was nothing worth admiring about it. A random passerby peeked in, and asked, "What's this? Is this a solo culinary skills performance?" Probably. Someone who had been watching for a very long time nodded. He had never seen such a strange duel. Some even thought that the owner of Mamie restaurant had already given up on this duel. After some time had passed, Sith opened the lid of the pot, and the aroma of the soup wafted out as the milky white soup bubbled. After he added some spring onions, Sith turned the fire off, and scooped up bowls of piping hot freshwater seafood soup to bring to the 5 judges. "Smells so good." Everyone's eyes were glued to the bowls of freshwater seafood soup. Ding! Just then, the bell hanging on the door of Mamie restaurant rang. The door opened, and Mag walked out calmly. Chapter 1140. Boss Mag opened the lid. At this moment, that was what the crowd and the 5 judges felt. The milky white freshwater seafood soup was wafting with the fresh scent of seafood mixed with the secret recipe soup base, making one feel satisfied just by smelling it. The crisp sound of the bell attracted everyone's attention to Mag, who was walking out of the restaurant. Because Mag left for dinner halfway through, people almost forgot that it was a duel. "It seems like Boss Sith's freshwater seafood soup is completed." Mag glanced at the huge bowl of freshwater seafood soup in front of the judges, and then at the expressions of the crowd. It seemed as though many were unhappy about him leaving halfway for dinner. "This owner is so rude." Exactly, first he talked back to the judge, then he left halfway during the duel. Now Boss Sith's freshwater seafood soup is already in front of the judges. What is he going to compete with? Yet. This freshwater seafood soup smells too good. It's pure wild freshwater seafood. Everyone can tell how fresh the ingredients are. I'm definitely going to Sith restaurant to try this freshwater seafood soup. The crowd mumbled amongst themselves. They basically did not think that Mag would win. "Boss Mag, this is for you." Sith brought a bowl of seafood soup over for Mag. Mag glanced at Sith. Seems like he is really very confident about his freshwater seafood soup. Is he trying to make me convinced about my loss? In that case, wouldn't he have to also give him a bowl of his soup? Wouldn't that be too cruel? Mag was hesitant. "I think that no matter what the result is, we should obtain each other's acknowledgement," Sith said with a smile. Mag reached over to receive the bowl of soup and nodded with a smile as he said, "You're right, but my soup is almost ready too. Let's have it together." As he said that, Mag placed the bowl of soup carefully on the table at the side. Candice lowered her head and smelled the soup before praising, "This freshwater seafood soup is milky white, thick but not creamy. It perfectly brought out the freshness of the seafood, and blended them very well into a bowl of soup. It is a really good soup." She picked up her spoon and scooped a spoonful of soup, putting it to her lips to blow on it softly before taking a sip. The warm freshwater seafood soup was mild and smooth. Although this was not the first time Candice tried this soup, she still could not help but praise, the freshness of the freshwater fish, tenderness of the river clams, and sweetness of the river shrimps are all perfectly blended within this spoonful of soup, yet its unique flavor teases the taste buds and is such a surprise. "This is indeed delicious." Wow, the legendary Icy Queen of the culinary actually gave such a high praise. "It looks like Boss Sith is really going to win this time," someone exclaimed softly. Febid picked up a spoon and drank a spoonful. He let the taste linger in his mouth for a while, and then nodded slightly, and said, This soup is a little light, it's still lacking a little in seasoning, but it did very well in bringing out the flavors of the ingredients. I don't think anyone would be able to match up to this standard with freshwater seafood as the ingredients. This is a good soup." Febid, the food critic with a wicked tongue, actually praised Boss Sith so highly. It looks like his vote is secured too, the bald man mumbled excitedly, looking as though victory was already in his hands. Boss Sith's culinary skills are still as stable as before. One will never tire of this bowl of freshwater seafood soup. Although the seafood in winter isn't as plump as in fall, the texture is better, and it has a delectable taste to it. This is a good soup. Robert also praised it with a nod after taking a few sips. Old Master Avis took a few sips, and looked at Sith with a smile as he said, "The best freshwater seafood soup in Rodu is from Roth Restaurant. It once was titled the best dish at the Roth Empire's Imperial Banquet. Chef Sith is already 80% there with this freshwater seafood soup. If improvements are made to the seasoning and the other side ingredients, it is possible for this to surpass Roth Restaurant's freshwater seafood soup one day." The president and Old Master Avis gave him really good comments too. The 4 judges had already recognized his skills. Is the result of this duel already out? Everyone looked at Randy. What would be the comment of this young food critic? Oh no, these judges seemed to be very satisfied with this freshwater seafood soup. Is Boss Mag really going to lose? The regulars of Mamie Restaurant were all very nervous. Although they were very confident in Boss Mag's culinary skills, it seemed like this opponent was no small fry as well. Boss, will win, right? Mia clenched her fists nervously. Although Mag had never lost, this situation was too nerve-wracking. Don't worry. Father is really good. He will definitely win, Amy said confidently as she watched Mag lower the flame on the stove. Yeah, Uncle Mag is the best chef. Anna also nodded her little head as she looked at Mag with admiration. I'm going to become complacent if you praise me like that, Mag said with a smile as he turned back to look at the 2 girls. He was in a very good mood. Mag put on his gloves to get ready to open the lid. On the other side, Randy picked up his chopsticks with a smile, and said, "The seniors all commented on the soup. As a meatitarian, I will try the seafood in the soup first." After he said that, he picked a small fish up. Although it had been cooking in the soup for a very long time, the meat of the fish did not fall off, and remained as it was. He put the small fish in a small bowl, and picked up a piece of meat to eat. Because it was cooked for the soup, this fish is very bland, and since it was cooked for a very long time, the meat is also a little dry. Following that, he scooped up some soup and ate it with the fish. This is way better. The soup is very rich, and it makes up for the bland meat. Also, this soup is richer and more flavorful than I thought it would be. It would be the best soup I've had in Chaos City if we were only talking about the soup. Next, let's try the river shrimp. My favorite dish is stir-fried shrimps. I wonder what the shrimp would taste like in this soup. Let's remove the head first, then squeeze out the insides, peel off its soft shell, and now Boss Mag opened the lid. Just then, someone exclaimed loudly. A rich fragrance wafted all over the place like crashing waves. The crowd that was absorbed in Randy's comments all turned over to look. Chapter 1141 Boss Mag is too stingy. Everyone's gaze landed on the huge wine urn that was simmering on the stove at the restaurant's entrance. The urn seal was removed, and that incredible aroma had come from that urn. If the freshwater seafood soup's aroma could be described as enticing, then this aroma would be jaw-dropping. It appeared instantly when the lid was removed. The intense aroma seeped out, and instantly covered the aroma of the freshwater seafood soup. It was a wonderful combination of seafood, meat, mushrooms, and a faint wine fragrance. It brought out the most unbelievable aroma that made one trapped within it. The crowd jeering earlier shut their mouths. They swallowed as they stared at the wine urn. What was in there? And why did it give out such a beautiful smell? How could this be? The bald guy's mouth was agape. Even though he didn't want to acknowledge it, this never-ending aroma that seeped into his nose had already destroyed most of his confidence. Sith slowly clenched his fists and thought, this is the Buddha jumps over the wall? Its aroma is indeed above that of freshwater seafood soup. But, ultimately the taste is the most important aspect of the duel. His gaze had become nervous. This aroma is simply too outstanding. Randy had forgotten to put the shrimp he had peeled into his mouth. He opened his mouth slightly and extended his neck to look at the wine urn. This aroma! How could this be? Candace, who was drinking the soup, suddenly raised her head and looked at Mag in disbelief. Robert, Febid, and Avis also put their spoons down and stared at Mag in a shock. Obviously, they were taken aback by the aroma. Yabimiya came up with a stack of small bowls, and softly asked, "Boss, are we really using such small bowls? Won't they be too small?" "They are not paying, so just a small bowl will do," Mag said in a hushed voice discreetly. He took the bowls and started to fill them up. He filled up 6 small bowls of Buddha jumps over the wall. There were 4 pieces of ingredients in each bowl, and they differed in each bowl. "Send these over to the judges and Boss Sith." Mag put away the ladle, smiling, and said to them, "Buddha jumps over the wall, please taste it." Bowls of Buddha jumps over the wall were placed in front of the judges, and the last bowl was given to Sith. Mag lifted the bowl of freshwater seafood soup that Sith gave to him earlier, and gestured to Sith before using a spoon to drink a sip. The texture was smooth, fresh, and fragrant. The freshness of freshwater seafood was displayed to a perfection without any hint of fishiness. It was a good bowl of soup, much better than most chefs. "Good soup." Mag gave Sith a thumbs up, and then placed the bowl aside. He was feeling too full to drink another bowl of soup. Sith's mouth twitched as he looked at the bowl that was put aside by Mag. He couldn't decipher if Mag's words were sincere praise or he was just being polite. The Buddha jumps over the wall was placed in front of the judges. Compared to the big bowl of freshwater seafood soup, the small bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall seemed a little petite. It was only about 1/5 of the freshwater seafood soup. "Even though this soup smells tantalizing, this boss is too stingy. He only gave them such a small bowl," someone in the crowd commented. However, the majority of the people's attention was on the 5 judges now. Both parties had already presented their soups. The result was now in the hands of the judges. This soup. How did he do it? Candace stared at the little bowl of dark brown soup with puzzlement. There was a piece of transparent shark's fins, a piece of chicken, a piece of mushroom, and an unknown piece of meat. She had stayed in Rodua for 40 over years. Most of her friends were chefs, and she had tasted numerous delicacies, but she had never encountered a soup with such an invasive aroma. Furthermore, this invasiveness wasn't off-putting. Instead, it made her want to simply surrender and face the impulsiveness head-on. Of course, the use of such words was inappropriate, but that was exactly how she was feeling now. A seemingly messy combination had merged into an irresistible amazing aroma perfectly. This was simply unbelievable. Soup was always viewed as the side dish on the dining table. However, if there were a table full of dishes now, even if it was the court banquet, this soup's aroma would already make it the absolute main dish. Mag's previous arrogant behavior gave her a rather bad impression, but this soup made her unable to resist wanting to try it. As a fair judge, it's my duty to taste it. I will force myself to do it. Candace tried to convince herself in her heart before picking the spoon to scoop 1 spoonful into her mouth. The tasty broth slowly nourished the taste buds, and then it raised a madness like a thunderstorm. The freshness of the seafood, the richness of the meat, the fragrance of the mushrooms. All the tastes of the different ingredients slowly entered the stage and released their amazing tastes on the tongue. It was played out on the tip of the tongue like a mesmerizing musical ensemble. After swallowing the soup, Candace uncontrollably praised, "Oh! Unbelievable taste! How did the tastes of so many different ingredients come together in such a small mouthful of soup? Not only is it not abrupt, the rich layering makes one mesmerized. This is a master's level cooking skill. It's astonishing." She felt it was inappropriate as soon as she said the words, but looking at the wonderful bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall, she couldn't lie. That would be profanity to her beliefs and decades of perseverance to her career. After a moment of silence, astonished looks began to appear on the faces of the surrounding crowd. Mag had rebutted the queen of the culinary earlier, and now she was heaping praises on the Buddha jumps over the wall. This was too unbelievable. Boss Mag indeed never disappoints. Febid stared at the tiny bowl in front of him, and fed himself a spoonful with tears in his eyes. There was a turning point in his career, and that was the duel between Mag and Ricky. As an outstanding brutally honest critic, the only negative comment he could come up with for Mag was his stinginess. This gave him a serious reservation about his profession. Because of this, he had to stop writing for a week. Then, he recollected himself and went to Mamie restaurant to nitpick and regain his confidence. From that day onward, every day was a downward spiral. And it continued to spiral down and down. Until now, the only negative comment he could come up with was still, Boss Mag was too stingy. This was seriously disappointing. The scrumptious soup washed over the taste buds, and the layering of the dozens of ingredients was astonishing. The combined flavor was so mesmerizing as if he was floating in the warm spring water. It was so comfortable that he wanted to go to sleep. As expected. Boss Mag is still so stingy. Febid opened his eyes to look at that little bowl with tears in his eyes. Chapter 1142 Boss Mag, one more bowl please. Mr. Febid, who's famous for being brutally honest, actually gave such a comment. It's too unbelievable. Everyone was shocked to hear that. Those who knew Febid's culinary criticism style found it even more unbelievable. See, I told you so. I said Boss Mag would definitely win. I tasted the Buddha jumps over the wall yesterday. That taste, tisk tisk, it was simply unforgettable, Harrison said to that freshwater seafood soup's fanatic fan next to him smugly. The fanatic fan snickered, but he was obviously losing his confidence as he said, "Hat. There are still 3 of them. The winner is not out yet. Looks like Mr. Mag's new product has brought excellent innovation again." Robert's eyes lit up too. During this time, many restaurants in Chaos City had started to copy and learn Mamie Restaurant's cooking style, and came up with new dishes. Chaos City's culinary world that had been stagnant for the past few years had begun to enter into a flourishing period of time. Even though there still weren't any new dishes that were amazing and revolutionary, this was a good phenomenon, and it gave plenty of surprises to the foodies as they could discover more and more new and interesting dishes. A one-man show that led the culinary trends. This had never happened in the history of Chaos City, and even in the history of Norland Continent, before. Mr. Mag could become a man that was written about in the history books because of food. Robert fed himself a spoonful of soup, and his eyes lit up brighter and brighter. The delicious soup was meaty but not greasy. The distinct layering of ingredients was amazing. He wanted to decipher each and every one of them, but there's simply too many of them for him to do so. Some were even unknown to him. After swallowing the Buddha jumps over the wall, Robert smiled. Seems like there will be a change for the next delicious cuisine rankings. Avis took a sip of the soup too. The scrumptious taste of Buddha jumps over the wall blossomed in his mouth with a strong impact that made him appear shocked. The rising generation is to be reckoned with. Avis gazed at Mag and marveled in his heart. He had ranked Mag in the first place for the meat rankings. Both red braised pork and Peking duck had given him an intense impact. Mag's cooking technique and out-of-the-box cooking ideas had surpassed all chefs of this era, including all those old guys who had spent decades in the kitchen. If this soup is presented at the King of Roth Empire's court banquet, it will definitely get the Best Dish award. I am awed and impressed with Mr. Mag's culinary knowledge and innovation. Avis looked at Mag and praised him sincerely. Mag cupped his hands, and humbly replied, "You are being too kind, sir. Is the president saying that Boss Mag's Buddha jumps over the wall is going to take the top spot?" Old Master Avis's comment for the freshwater seafood soup was a promising future, but his comment for Boss Mag's Buddha jumps over the wall was the court's banquet's best dish. Isn't the disparity very obvious? Even though they have not entered into the final voting round, the tables seem to have turned totally. Haha! Boss Mag's capabilities are not just for show. The surrounding crowd began to discuss spiritedly. Sith held the tiny bowl in his hands with a pale face. Boss! Boss, are we going to lose? The bald guy asked Sith softly with a panicked expression. He no longer looked smug and confident. He has received great comments beyond my expectations, and the interesting part is that every judge had different ingredients in their bowls for the exact same soup. Then, I will follow what I did earlier and taste the meat first. Randy placed the shrimp that he had peeled back into the freshwater seafood soup, and used the spoon to scoop a piece of meat from the bowl. Seems like a piece of chicken. There is indeed a rich taste of chicken broth in the soup. I just wonder, how would this piece of chicken taste after being cooked for such a long period of time? Randy put the diced-up chicken into his mouth. The most particular aspect when it came to cooking meat was the control of the fire and heat. When the meat was cooked for too long, it could become so dry or so mushy it lost its bite and flavor. As an exacting meatitarian, Randy had such a high standard for meat that it was almost perverted. He had once backpacked across the entire Norland continent in search of the perfect meat dish. This was also why he could become the youngest columnist for Meatitarian ever within one short year. The readers always commented that his words had a soul. He was a true Meatitarian. According to his experience, meat that was cooked for so long would have lost its flavor and texture. He bit down on the chicken, and it wasn't mushy as he thought it would be. Instead, it was perfectly soft and tender. What was even more unbelievable was the rich meaty taste. It wasn't just the taste of chicken. The fragrance of the wine, seafood, and mushrooms and all the different aromas of different meat had merged together and seeped into the chicken. All the ingredients' tastes were integrated with one another, and one could sense different tastes in all the ingredients. The chicken was soft but not mushy when chewed, and there was an endless aftertaste. Randy felt his scalp had started to tingle. This had totally subverted his understanding of meat as he had never met food like this. The taste buds had already gone crazy as they welcomed this amazing revelry. He had almost chewed his tongue off too. He didn't feel satisfied after he swallowed the piece of chicken. He wanted more. I cannot find words or phrases to describe this sensation. Even when compared to all the meat dishes I have had before, this piece of meat was among the top 3 I have ever tasted. What is even more unbelievable is that I actually met it in a bowl of soup. This world has gone crazy. Randy's face was full of awe as he smiled at Mag. I think I know what I should write for this month's column. Mr. Mag, I really should thank you. You are too kind. Mag gave a brief nod. He couldn't stand these so-called food critics the most. He wished they would become cooks in their next life. Randy retrieved his gaze and scooped up a piece of transparent shark's fin. He studied it for a moment before putting it into his mouth. The slippery shark's fin glided into his mouth instantly. The shark's fin that had absorbed all the broth had a very amazing texture and wonderful taste. It gave him a totally different experience from the chicken. All the 5 judges were tasting and scrutinizing the tiny bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall. The big bowl of freshwater seafood soup at the side was totally ignored. Ding! Febid's spoon was the first to hit the bottom of the bowl. He lifted the tiny bowl to his mouth and titled his head to swallow the last few drops. He said to Mag, "Boss Mag, one more bowl, please." Chapter 1143 5:0 Candace put down her spoon and wiped her mouth elegantly with her silk handkerchief. Her throat moved a little while she gazed at Mag, but she forced herself to remain quiet. She secretly panicked in her heart. If they are going to have another bowl, I suppose I will get one too? Robert and Avis put down their bowls. Even though they said nothing, both of them turned their gazes on Mag smiling. Mag said, "I beg your pardon. That's all I have prepared for the judges. The rest is reserved for the customers." If you would like to have some more, you are welcome to join the line and come into the restaurant to have it. Boss Mag, why are you so stingy? There is still so much in that urn. You can afford to give us another small bowl, Fabid said to Mag aggrievedly to show disdain to Mag's stingy behavior. Because of the high cost, thus, Mag shrugged. His expression was enough to explain everything as he continued, I guess that bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall is enough for the judges to make your decisions for this duel. Never mind, I don't have much hope for you anyway. I would like to pre-order a bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall. Fabid sighed. Disregarding the judges in a culinary duel was something that only Mag would do, but whenever he heard about Boss Mag engaging in the duel, he couldn't help but come to taste it. This feeling was simply too frustrating. This boss is someone with a character. Randy wasn't annoyed, he began to look at Mag with some interest instead. He raised his hand. I would like to pre-order one bowl too, and I will definitely go in to eat. Robert raised his hand to request for silence before loudly saying, all right, since we have tried Boss Sith's and Boss Mag's soup, we will vote to decide the winner of the duel now. Who is going to win? I am so nervous. Why do you need to be nervous? Isn't it obvious that Buddha jumps over the wall is going to win? Not really. Didn't that boss insult the queen of the culinary earlier? Maybe she is going to vote for Boss Sith. Even though the surroundings had quieted down, there was still some mumbling going on. Mamie restaurant's staff were also a little expectant and nervous. The final result was going to be announced soon. Sith hadn't touched the Buddha jumps over the wall in his hand yet. Although his expression was calm, the trembling hand that was holding the bowl had betrayed his inner turmoil. The bald guy and the Sith restaurant's staff looked very nervous now as they glanced at Sith and the judges. They were going to be a joke if they lost. I am astonished by Mr. Mag's Buddha jumps over the wall. It's hard to imagine that meat could be cooked to such perfection in a pot of soup. It has totally subverted my understanding of culinary cooking. Hence, I am giving my vote to Mr. Mag. Randy pointed at Mag. Boss Sith's freshwater seafood soup has always been making little improvements. This is not easy for chefs. His performance today can also be considered as perfect. His soup is fresh and tasty. It's indeed a very good soup. Fabid praised Sith, and then pointed at Mag. Therefore, I choose Mr. Mag. 2 votes. The audience began to get nervous. According to the rules, whoever got 3 votes first was going to be the winner. Candace cleared her throat, and everyone's gaze fell on her. She had a small argument with Mag before the duel began. The audience were so curious if that was going to be the turning point of the duel. Please. She has to vote for Boss Sith. The bald guy put his hands together and prayed. His dream of becoming the manager of the new branch would be over if they lost the duel. Mag looked at Candace too. This old lady with a strong presence had the pride of a chef. She could go against her heart and choose Sith, but if she did that, he would be very disappointed. I have always admired Sith's humbleness and hard-working attitude. His great-grandfather was the one who brought me into profession. The freshwater seafood soup he made then was already very highly acclaimed. I have deliberately gone to try the freshwater seafood soup made by Sith when I came back to Chaos City. Initially, I was worried that it would lose its original taste after 3 generations. But I was surprised when that didn't happen. The freshwater seafood soup made by Sith still retained the essence of his grandfather's soup, but the taste and texture were improved significantly. He made the freshwater seafood soup well known in the culinary world, Candace said to Sith with an approving smile. Sith was slightly taken back. Even though he knew his family had a little connection with Candace, he didn't know that it was his great-grandfather who brought her into the profession. He was touched hearing her comment. He felt his lifelong work had been acknowledged. He bowed, and said, "Thank you." Candace retrieved her gaze, and then looked at Mag with more judgment in her eyes. She said in a colder tone of voice, "I have never liked those people who are disrespectful to their elders, but I cannot deny that the Buddha jumps over the wall made by Mr. Mag has surpassed all the soups I have ever tasted before, and will most likely surpass the soups that I will taste in the future. I have to give the vote to him to be true to a chef's beliefs. Thank you. Mag nodded. He was feeling rather surprised. He didn't expect she would vote for him after singing Sith Restaurant's praises. He was impressed with the way she handled this. 3:0 The winner is confirmed. The regulars of Mamie Restaurant had begun to cheer ecstatically. But the Sith Restaurant's fans didn't look too good. The restaurant that they supported had lost, they naturally didn't feel too good about it. What do we do now? The bald guy had lost his cool totally. He instigated Sith to come here for a duel. He'd thought they were going to win, and now they had suffered a humiliating defeat. Mr. Mag's innovation spirit and capabilities have exceeded those of all the chefs I have met. He has amazing capabilities just like a magic caster. Just like I couldn't understand how cooking dozens of ingredients together in a big pot could yield such a scrumptious pot of soup, Avis said to Mag with a smile. Although my vote isn't going to affect the result, I am still going to give my vote to Mr. Mag. The chefs in Rodu should thank Mr. Mag for not staying in the palace. Otherwise, there would be no doubt who would get all the future court banquets Best Dish awards. Boss Sith and Mr. Mag are both great chefs of Chaos City. Because of chefs like you who persevere and innovate, the foodies of Chaos City can enjoy increasingly more delicious food. Robert pointed at Mag, but today, Mr. Mag's Buddha jumps over the wall is indeed better. I am giving my vote to Mr. Mag. Chapter 1144 Can't we single people eat in peace? Congratulations to Buddha jumps over the wall for becoming the number 1 on the soup rankings. The regulars of Mamie Restaurant clapped enthusiastically to celebrate the spectacular win. Even though they had expected Mag to win, they still felt relieved after the result was announced. They began to congratulate Mag. The surrounding crowd began to clap too. Without any doubt, that was an exciting duel. Is that Buddha jumps over the wall really so tasty? I want to try it after watching this duel. Why don't we eat here tonight? No problem. I took all my secret savings out today. I'll treat you all to Buddha jumps over the wall, a thin man said generously as his friends cheered. I guess your wife is going to chop you up when you get home later. Harrison gazed at that man piteously. There was probably the misery of being a married man. It was still better to be a carefree single like him. The surroundings were in an uproar, but Sith looked lost as he stared at the bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall in his hands. He was absorbed in his own thoughts. The bald guy and the staff of Sith Restaurant didn't know what to do at all. They looked at Sith, but they didn't dare to ask him. They had never expected the freshwater seafood soup would lose so horribly in the category of soup. Mag smiled to acknowledge the congratulations as he looked at Sith. He had to be the most affected by the defeat. He wondered if he would go into a downward spiral from this point onward. There were not many good chefs in Chaos City. Boss Sith, who was focused on the freshwater seafood soup, could be considered as one. Robert and the gang were also looking at Sith with a hint of worry in their eyes. When a person had gone to the extreme as a chef, they would usually have a strong sense of pride. How Sith could accept his failure would most likely affect how far he could go on the path as a chef. Sith remained quiet for a long time, and just as Robert was about to stand up and speak, he fed himself a spoonful of the soup. Then, he closed his eyes. The warm soup with the fragrance of wine, chicken, mushrooms, seafood. All the different tastes began to appear continuously. The tightly furrowed brows of Sith began to relax gradually. After a long while, Sith opened his eyes and said to Mag, Mr. Mag's soup is indeed far better than the freshwater seafood soup. I admit my defeat wholeheartedly. You are too kind, Mag said, cupping his hand. I think I will be back to challenge Mr. Mag again. But, that would be many years later, Sith said smilingly. Then, I will wait for Boss Sith to come patiently. Mag smiled too. It seemed like this boss Sith not only wasn't depressed, but also had his fighting spirit spurred on instead. Sith finished the soup and the meat together in a few gulps, and passed the bowl to Mia before saying to the bald guy, "Give 10,000 copper coins to Mr. Mag and keep our stuff. I am going back first." Then, he bowed to the judges and turned to walk toward the horse-drawn carriage. The bald guy took out his money bag and dug out 10 dragon coins. He gave them to Mag, and then instructed the staff to keep the kitchenware. They no longer looked arrogant, and were about to leave sheepishly. "Wait a minute. Please help us put the tables back to their original positions," Mag said smilingly as he kept money and stopped them from leaving. "This chap. He's really too much." The bald guy stared at Mag with clenched teeth, but he still led his staff to put the tables back into their original positions. The duel was over, and the crowd began to disperse slowly. However, there were also many spectators who were so impressed by Mag's Buddha jumps over the wall that they joined the line, hoping to taste the scrumptious dish that was heaped with praises. "Thank you for working so hard, judges. I am sorry I cannot entertain you anymore, but the restaurant is about to open for service," Mag said to the judges before walking up the steps to open the restaurant's door wide. Then, he smiled and greeted the customers in the line. "Welcome to Mamie Restaurant. Okay, let's go and line up. I have to get in the restaurant in time for today's Buddha jumps over the wall quota. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep tonight." Febid clapped his hands and walked toward the end of the line. Randy quickly caught up with Febid and curiously asked, "Senior Febid, seems like you are Mamie Restaurant's regular customer. Besides Buddha jumps over the wall, are there other meat dishes that are nice? Kid, are you trying to steal my ideas?" Febid turned around and looked at Randy judgingly. "Why would I? You and I have totally different styles." Randy laughed. He was even more interested in this restaurant. It seemed like it was a treasure trove. Febid nodded. After a moment of hesitation, he couldn't help but say, "That's true. Let me tell you, when it comes to meat, the first choice definitely has to be the red braised pork. Even though the meat in Buddha jumps over the wall tastes good, there's too little of it. You can't eat to your heart's content. The red braised pork is different. It comes in one big bowl, and with a bowl of rice, it is one of the world's marvels. Since we are already here, let's have dinner before we leave," Robert said to Avis and Candice with a smile as he proceeded to the end of the line too. "We haven't met for a while, Candice. Why don't we have dinner together tonight?" Avis asked Candice with an awkward look. "Ah, you are not worthy." Candice sneered as she turned and left. Seems like she is still hung up on what happened in the past. Avis sighed as he watched Candice's carriage go away. He also turned and left. The biggest impact this duel had on Mamie Restaurant was that it had promoted Buddha jumps over the wall, and made many people aware of its scrumptiousness. 10,000 copper coins for a helping. This Buddha jumps over the wall is too expensive. 10,000 copper coins. It's equal to 1 month of my wages. I can't even save 10,000 copper coins in a year. However, the customers had noticed the price on the menu very soon, and started to exclaim and lament. Those who came for the first time simply stood up and left quietly after reading the menu. The prices were too unfriendly. Ahem, I think let's change to another restaurant. I feel that freshwater seafood soup is not bad, either. The skinny man who'd said he wanted to treat his friends Buddha jumps over the wall cleared his throat awkwardly and walked out. Sure, let's change a restaurant, or you would never be able to come out again if your wife finds out. His friends were shocked too after they heard the price. They agreed with him smilingly and followed him out. Miss Mia, I would like to have a helping of Buddha jumps over the wall and 1 helping of Yongzhou fried rice. I will add 1 more Rujiamo, Harrison ordered with a smile as soon as he sat down. He secretly lamented in his heart that being single still had its benefits. Dear, what do you want to have for dinner tonight? Do you want a bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall too? Then, we will add another 3 rugiamos. You must eat to your heart's content. Right at this moment, a seductively sweet voice chimed as a beautiful young wife came in with a fumbling man. They sat across Harrison, behaving very lovingly. Can't we single people eat in peace? Harrison thought jealousy. Chapter 1145 Father, I am here. The patriarch of the Gould family, Mr. Charney, had invited all of them to witness the completion of the 3-year agreement between him and his son. Of course, those who were close to Charney already knew he was going to use this opportunity to formally introduce his successor to them. Everyone knew the young master of Gould family didn't like to do business, instead, he preferred to be a knight. He had made Charney worried for the past few years. However, the 3-year agreement was going to end tonight, and that young master who was thought to be gifted didn't become a mid-tier knight. According to their agreement, he had to give up his dream of becoming a knight and become the successor of the Gould family. As one of the 4 major families of Chaos City, the Gould family wielded a significant amount of influence in Chaos City. The only son's exclusive treatment was the envy of the other noble family's offspring who had to scheme and fight for their rights to the inheritance. However, this young Master Adams was a little off for trying to be a knight. He had already become a joke among the younger generation. Is that young Master Adams going to be miserable today? He is going to be forced to inherit hundreds of millions of family fortune. Ah! He could be saying no, but in fact he is ecstatic in his heart. There are no idiots who dislike money in this world. That's right. I heard many families want to send their young mistresses to Gould Manor. He should be very happy. A few young men from the powerful families had gathered together to chat and joke around. They sounded sarcastic and disdainful, but their expressions showed envy and jealousy. Charney was very happy today. He was smiling and welcoming his guests, and even his bald head seemed to glow brighter. His wife stood next to him and welcomed the guests with a smile too. When they were finally alone, she tugged at Charney's sleeves, and whispered, "Master, will Adams be upset? You made it into such a big event, will he feel embarrassed and stay away?" "Don't worry. In his beloved knight's codes, there is a code of integrity. He will definitely come. This is a pact between men." Charney shook his head, not worried at all. Then, he stepped forward with a smile to shake the hand of Sheer, who had just arrived. "Thank you for coming, Miss Sheer." Sheer retrieved her hand, and smilingly said, "You are too kind. This interesting match is very worthwhile for me to witness it for myself." "The city lord has arrived," a voice announced, and everyone lowered their voices and looked toward the entrance. They were rather shocked that Charney had even invited the city lord. "Thank you for coming despite your busy schedule, my lord." Charney and his wife went forward to welcome him respectfully with bright smiles. He had pulled out all the stops to create this big event for Adams today. However, as the successor of the Gould family, he deserved such a big event. "I didn't come for you today, Charney. I came for the young knight who was caught in between taking over his family fortune and becoming a great knight. I personally support him to become an outstanding knight and protect Chaos City." Michael laughed gregariously. Charney was stunned for a moment, but he swiftly smiled and said, "You are his idol. He would be ecstatic if he heard you say that." The guests started to arrive. One man who was on good terms with Charney smilingly asked, "Charney, where's Adams, our knight?" "He is our man tonight. Don't worry, he will come. He should be on his way now," Charney answered smilingly as he gave the old butler at the side a look. The butler understood immediately as he turned and strode out. Everyone was chatting and toasting one another happily. A banquet that had half of the most important people in Chaos City gathering together like this wasn't common. Many came with the motive to make more friends and establish a deeper relationship with those in power. As for witnessing the young master of Gould family becoming the successor, it was just an act of going through the motions. His news wasn't a secret. He hadn't made any improvement in 3 years, and was already deemed someone not going to make it the mid-tier knight in this lifetime. Of course, as the successor of a clan, he didn't need to have strong personal power. When he took over the control of the entire Gould family, he was still going to become one of the most powerful people in Chaos City. The efforts he spent to become a knight would become a joke in the eyes of the majority of the people. Smiling, a middle-aged man tapped his wine glass with Charney's as he said, "You can retire in peace now, Charney. I still have to make him understand the businesses and manage them well. It's still a long time before I can retire." Charney shook his head, but the smile on his face betrayed his actual feelings. The entire banquet had a cordial mood. Everyone was waiting for Adam's arrival to put a closure on this 3-year agreement joke. The door opened just as the old butler was about to knock on it. Adams, who was wearing golden and silver bicolored armor, came out. He even wore a big sword on his waist. He didn't wear his helmet, and his hair was so extremely short that he looked bald. But if one looked closely, he could still see the very fine and short hair that resembled the grass that just shot out of the ground and grew vigorously in spring. Adams glanced at the old butler, and calmly said, "Let's go." "Why, young master, it isn't appropriate for you to dress like this. I have already prepared the evening wear for you earlier, why don't you go back and change into it?" the butler said hesitantly. He had sensed that the young master looked different today, but he couldn't pinpoint what was different. "There's no need to. I am not going to take part in tonight's banquet. I am only there to fulfill my part of the 3-year agreement." Adams led the way out. "Young master, this is not appropriate," the old butler quickly caught up. He had also finally understood why Adams looked different. He was not wearing his wig today. "Young master's hair has regrown." The old butler followed behind Adams and stared at the short hair that burst out of that shiny scalp agitatedly. As an old employee that had spent his entire life in Gould Manor, he had witnessed old Master Gould being bald his whole life, then witnessed Charney turning from a bald young man into a bald middle-aged man, and also watched young Master Adams losing his hair at a young age. Baldness was like a curse that was closely bound to the Gould family. But now, Adams was actually regrowing his hair. This was simply too unbelievable. Adams stepped into the banquet hall, and loudly announced, "Father, I am here." Chapter 1146. Now it's time for you to acknowledge it. They had heard that the Gould family had hereditary baldness. Be it the previous patriarch or Charney, they both went bald at a young age. However, Adams had always portrayed an image with plenty of hair which once made people suspicious. Looking at him now, he should have been covering up the symptoms of his early hair loss problem previously. In fact, he had already followed in the footsteps of his father and grandfather, and was part of the bald men faction. What a pity, one could only wonder how many young mistresses had their hearts shattered. Adams was rich, handsome, and muscular, almost the perfect candidate for a marriage alliance. But now, he was bald at such a young age, which was difficult to accept. PFFF. Ha ha ha. Those young men who'd gathered together to snicker at Adams earlier were stunned. Then, they began laughing sarcastically. The ambience of the banquet hall was plunged into an awkwardness because of Adams' appearance. There was a hint of surprise in Cheer's eyes when she looked at Adams. Her gaze started from the top of his head, and then landed on his shiny armor. An interested smile appeared on her lips. "They do look like father and son now." Michael looked at Adams and then at Charney. He, too, began to smile. Charney was also stunned when he saw Adams. He never expected Adams would show up like this. Adams had refused to meet anyone ever since he started to lose his hair, and when he received his wig, he always wore it, even when he was at home. Apart from a few old servants, no one knew he had already lost all his hair. But now, he actually took off his wig on his own accord. As for the armor he was wearing, even a 10th-tier knight like the city lord would remove his armor and change into an appropriate evening when they were invited to an evening banquet. He had dressed like that deliberately. Charney's expression returned to its original calmness again. He pretended he knew what was going on and smiled at Adams. "You are here, Adams. You said 3 years ago this was a pact between men. 3 years have passed, and as a real man, I have to come and fulfill this agreement." Adams walked to the center of the banquet hall with his sword. His strapping figure and handsome face made people take a double look even though he had almost no hair. So handsome. Even though he has no hair, he still looks much better than those guys who can't even stand straight. A young mistress held her hands to her heart and revealed a mesmerized smile. "Ah! What's the point of acting cool when he is already bald? What a big braised egg!" A skinny young man with sunken eyes sneered, and a few young men wearing luxurious clothes started to laugh too. Their expressions were full of sarcasm and smugness. Initially, Charney was still worried Adams might be depressed because of this, but looking at his calm expression, he lamented that Adams had finally sorted out his thoughts. He nodded and smiled. "Seems like my child has really matured into a real man who is able to undertake responsibilities and fulfill his promises. In this case, I can pass Gould family to you in the future. Congratulations for obtaining an outstanding successor, Chief Charney. Young Master Adams will definitely become a businessman as outstanding as you." The people around him had already begun to congratulate and suck up to him. Some even raised their glasses and prepared to toast him. There was a glow on Charney's face. He had waited for this day for so many years, and it was finally here. In order to make sure that the huge family business of the Gould family could continue, grooming Adams into an outstanding businessman and an adequate patriarch was his greatest wish. Everyone believed that the outcome of the 3-year agreement was already fixed. This was only a grand introduction ceremony that Charney had prepared for Adams to signify his formal entrance into the rich and powerful circle, and him taking his place at the pinnacle eventually. It was simply going through the motions. Charney placed one hand on Adams' shoulder, and loudly declared, "I, Charney, the chief of Gould family, hereby formally announce that my son, Adams, will become the Gould family's only father." Adams interrupted Charney, and seriously said, "We have made an agreement 3 years ago. If I failed to become a mid-tier knight, then I would obey and follow all your arrangements unconditionally, be it marriage or inheriting the family fortune. But if I could advance to mid-tier knight, then from today onward, I would be in charge of my own life, and you would not interfere anymore, right?" The banquet hall fell into a complete silence, and everyone was staring at Adams perplexedly. They couldn't understand why he was repeating this agreement which was already meaningless now. Charney smiled and nodded at Adams. "Yes, we did make an agreement like that 3 years ago, so now it's time for you to acknowledge it." Clink! Adams took out the sword at his waist, and then raised it above his head. A golden beam lit up at the handle, and then travelled up the sword along the patterns. Finally, it became a golden light that engulfed the entire longsword. It shone even brighter than the opulent hanging light on the ceiling. This is the light of the sword projection. This is the most obvious manifestation of the mid-tier knight, someone in the crowd exclaimed. The quiet banquet hall became noisy slowly as everyone stared at that glowing long sword with shock on their face. Adams has really become a 4th-tier knight? How could this happen? Didn't they say his power had deteriorated in the past 3 years? How did he advance so suddenly? The skinny young man who was saying all the sarcastic words earlier felt as if he just swallowed a fly. However, in this case, Adams has won this 3-year agreement. Even more gazes landed on Charney. He had planned such a grand event to pave a way for Adams to enter the circle of the rich and powerful of Chaos City, but the tables were turned on him at the very last minute, which was truly unexpected. "This chap is quite interesting." Michael began to look at Adams with appreciation in his eyes. There were numerous offspring of the powerful families who would plot and scheme for power and fortune, but this chap wanted nothing to do with them, and only wanted to be a true knight. This type of young person was rare. This Charney stared at the long sword in Adam's hand with his mouth wide open. He was speechless. However, Adams actually became a mid-tier knight today. This was simply befuddling. Mrs. Charney stood at a side and stared at the father and son in a confusion. She was happy for Adams, yet worried for Charney at the same time. She had no idea what to say at that moment. When did you advance, Adams? Are you really a mid-tier knight? Charney asked Adams doubtfully, trying to calm himself down. I have just advanced last night, Adams explained before looking at Michael, and respectfully said, I would like to ask the city lord to be my witness to prove my advancement to a mid-tier knight. Light of the sword projection is indeed only achievable after advancing to the 4th tier. I have observed the energy in Adam's body. It has indeed reached the standard of a 4th tier. He is officially a mid-tier knight. Michael nodded before extending his right hand to shake Adams's hand. He smilingly said, Congratulations, young knight. Thank you. Adams quickly kept his long sword and shook Michael's hand with an excited expression. With the city lord's testimony, it seems like Adams has won this 3-year agreement. I guess Charney is going to have insomnia again. I don't know what to say about this son of his. He is so formidable. A young 4th tier knight. People were watching Adams and his father with different expressions. Some of them were astonished, some were gloating, and some young ladies were smiling at him with admiration. Father, you will honor the agreement, right? Adams asked Charney, trying his best to keep his emotions in check. Charney's hands were trembling. He had waited 3 years for this day, and he thought he was going to win. He was about to start his successor grooming project when Adams gave him a huge setback. But the stage was already set today, and half of the rich and powerful people in Chaos City were present. Lord Michael had already testified personally, so he couldn't go back on his words, or he would be an untrustworthy man, and the Gould family would lose its honor. Charney patted Adams' shoulder lightly with a warm smile as he said, Adams, I admire your character and talent as a knight, and you have proven yourself again in front of all these people by becoming an honorable 4th tier knight. Your mother and I are proud of you. I promise you I will not interfere in your path toward being a great knight from now on, but I hope you can consider being the Gould family's successor and continue its excellence at the same time as you pursue your dream as a knight. Charney looked at Adams with an intense gaze that was filled with hope and expectations. Adams' mother stepped forward and held onto Charney's hand as she emotionally said to Adams, Adams, your father only has one child and that's you. Everyone was looking at Adams. No one was able to refuse a condition like this, right? In the eyes of the majority of the people, Adams was only trying to be a knight for fun. He would return to where he should be when he had enough fun. I am sorry, father. I reject it, Adams replied Charney with his chin raised slightly. With a confident smile, he said, my hair has already regrown, so I believe I will become an excellent knight. My objective is to become a great knight like Alex. I need to focus, so I cannot be distracted by money and women. Hair. Charney's gaze moved upward and landed on top of Adam's head. Under the bright candlelight, there was indeed a layer of short new hair as fine as fur visible. It resembled grass nourished by the spring rain and popping up everywhere. Adams's hair has really regrown. Happiness flashed across the face of Adam's mother, and she stepped forward to look at his new hair subconsciously with reddened eyes. It has actually regrown. Charney murmured in surprise. He, too, had shut himself away when he began to lose his hair in the past. He tried uncountable methods to regrow his hair, but neither doctors nor magic casters could help. He only accepted his bald look gradually after many years, but he would still feel uncomfortable when people were talking about it behind his back. Wah! Baldness is actually curable now. Everyone started to show their astonishment, and the eyes of many who were bothered by hair loss problems widened. They looked at Adams and planned how to ask him for the solution. Charney looked at Adams, who seemed to glow under the light. His gaze was as clear as if he was still a teenager. It reminded him of that young man who had wanted to be a great musician but eventually chose to submit. Now, he had even forgotten how to hold a musical instrument. Did I become someone that I hated when I was young? Charney sneered at himself in his heart. He smiled at Adams. Since you want to become a knight like Alex, I will wait 10 years for you, as he had become invincible at 30 years old. If you are still unknown then, you will come back to inherit the family business, as I will already be old by then. Adams stared at Charney in a shock. He thought his father was going to try his best to stop him. He didn't expect he would suggest another 10-year agreement. Looking at the desolation in that pair of eyes, Adams felt guilty for the first time. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded with conviction. All right, a 10-year agreement. If I am still a nobody then, I will definitely come back to inherit the family business and continue the Gould family's glory. Michael took a step forward and laughed as he said, since this is the case, I will be the witness of this 10-year agreement. He is such a weird person, Sheer thought as she looked at Adams. Then, she thought again, she herself might be a weirdo in other people's eyes too. It was already late in the night, and Mamie restaurant was closed for business. The dark first-floor hall was in total silence. Right at this moment, a bat hanging in the corner landed on the floor softly, and transformed into Camilla in a black dress. She smirked. "Ha, stupid human! I will show my prowess once I get the photo stones." There were still 2 rooms on the left. One of them should be Gina's room, while the other was Mag's. This chap may have ulterior motives by keeping the mermaid in the shop with him. It's good that I brought the photo stone along with me. I could record it down as evidence if they are having an affair. Camilla took out a white stone with a smug smile and then snuck up to the 2nd floor. Creak. Camilla opened the door of the study room on the right gently and dashed in. Her eyes were glowing gently in the dark, and she could see everything clearly. The study wasn't big. It had an entire wall covered with a bookshelf that was already half full of books of different genres. There was also a dark brown original wood desk that had 2 books and a tea set on it. There was nothing else in the room. Did this chap really have these many books? Camilla mumbled doubtfully as her gaze swept across all the different books on the bookshelf. Then, she started to search the room. However, most of the stuff in the room was very visible, and there weren't any cupboards, so she couldn't find any photo stones. Just as I expected, that chap must have kept the photo stone in his bedroom and watched it secretly under his blanket at midnight. He is indeed a sleazy, stinky man. Camilla said to herself through clenched teeth. She would cut him into pieces if he wasn't such a great cook. Camilla breathed in deeply to calm her emotions before moving to the bedroom slowly. Even though she was behind the wooden door, she could clearly sense the 3 sets of stable breathing in the room. They should all be sleeping. She was a 9th-tier vampire. It was too easy for her to hide herself from a normal human and 2 little ones. She placed her hand on the doorknob, and then pulled the door outward silently. Stunned, Camilla stared at the totally still wooden door. Why didn't this door open? Could it be locked from the inside? There was a hint of doubt in Camilla's eyes. She pushed the handle down hard for another half a round, and then pulled it outward harder. The door remained unmoved. Camilla stared at the doorknob for quite a while, and was sure that it wasn't locked from the inside. But the strange thing was, no matter how hard she tugged, the door remained unmoved. Cold sweat began to appear on her forehead. What stupid door is this? It's so hard to open. If I can't open you today, I am not Camilla. Camilla said to herself angrily. She warmed up her limbs for a moment before extending her hand to the handle again. Crack! Right at this moment, the inert door made a light sound, and then slowly opened inward. Mag leaned against the door frame and yawned, wearing a sleeping robe. He rather helplessly said to Camilla, "This door opens inward." Camilla's expression froze on her face as she stared at Mag standing at the door. Then, she looked at the wooden door that slowly opened inward, and felt that her intelligence was greatly insulted. Furthermore, why was Mag standing here? Shouldn't he be sound asleep on the bed after watching the photo stone? Why are you still awake? Camilla simply asked subconsciously. If your door handle had been tortured by someone like this, even a pig would have woken up. Mag glanced at the door handle. Fortunately, it wasn't damaged. In fact, Mag was already notified by the system when Camilla first entered the restaurant, and also received real-time surveillance video at the same time. He couldn't continue to watch any further when she almost broke the door handle stupidly. That was when he decided to leave his warm bed to open the door for her. Mag stood up straight, and teasingly said, "Moreover, shouldn't I be the one asking what you are doing here?" Camilla panicked. In her plans, getting the photo stone quietly was foolproof. She had never considered that she would be caught on the spot because she would fail to open the door. Stunned, she stared at Mag for 3 seconds, and then started to back off as she said, "I think I have walked into the wrong room. It's already very late, so you go and sleep now. You don't have to bother about me." As soon as she finished talking, she disappeared from the stairway. Then, a series of bangs sounded downstairs before the sounds totally disappeared. Seems like this woman wasn't happy to be a service staff member at the restaurant. Mag pulled his clothes together before going downstairs to close and lock the windows in the back kitchen. He indeed had one photo stone, but the system could make countless copies for him anytime. Hence, he didn't really care whether Camilla did steal the photo stone or not. He thought she would be content with being a chopper for a year, but she didn't seem to be content at all right now. He should pay more attention to her in the future. After returning to the room, Mag spread the blanket that Amy had kicked away over the 2 little ones again. Then, he went to his bed and continued his sleep. Camilla transformed into a bat and flew out from the restaurant. She landed on the top of a huge tree in the forest outside of the restaurant and stared at Mamie restaurant angrily. Caesar jumped onto the tree, and expectantly asked Camilla, "Did you succeed, madam?" Camilla's eyes twitched as she couldn't recount such an embarrassing incident. Her expression became calm again as she took out a photo stone, and said, "Of course. It's only a piece of cake for me. It's only a stupid human." "Bravo, madam." Caesar's eyes lit up, and he quickly happily said, "In this case, madam won't need to go and work in that restaurant as a service staff member again, since you are no longer threatened by him." Ahem, ahem. Camilla kept the photo stone with an unnatural expression and said, "Of course, I am not going to be threatened by a human. But I am not going to let him off like this, so I will continue to work undercover in his restaurant to gather evidence against him and pass it to Miss Gloria. She will give up on him, and then I will be able to win her heart." "Bravo, madam!" Caesar said in awe. Camilla laughed smugly with tense lips. "I will have to provide breakfast for the cleaners from tomorrow onwards, so I have to learn how to cook congee with pork and century egg now." Lying on the bed, Mag opened the door to the test field for the god of cookery and stepped in. Transforming a normal duck egg into a beautiful century egg was more of a chemical reaction than a culinary process. Soak the pre-selected eggs in the pickling solution made up of alkali, salt, tea leaves, and mulberry ash for a few days. Then, remove them from the solution, and roll them in the dry mud powder before encasing them with rice chaff. A century egg is then considered successfully made. An ordinary century egg. A century egg that is not bouncy enough. Mag stared at the century egg on the plate that had an intricate pattern and 3 distinct colors after it was cut open. He raised his eyebrow, and said, "System, what the heck is not bouncy enough?" Portrait, Shen Mag 3 years ago, from Hawaii IMATE10 Porsche user and what authentic Lake Wetian century egg? It's not bouncy at all. They might as well spend their time bouncing around and chase after Pikachu rather than make century egg. Mag dumped the century egg into the waste bin at the side, and continued to make century eggs. If he could start his life all over again, he would definitely be a kind and loving rich second-generation heir who embraced life. He would never sprout nonsense online again. Fail. 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 Congratulations! You have made a very bouncy century egg. A successful century egg was indeed very bouncy. Mag used his finger to poke it. The bouncy feeling was very obvious as it sunk in a little. When he removed his finger, it went back to its original shape again. The light brown century egg was semi-transparent with a pattern that resembled pine twigs on its surface. They were formed naturally yet looked so intricate as if a master traditional Chinese painter had painted them. It was amazing. After cutting it open, 3 circles of different hues were very distinct. The outermost layer was very bouncy, and was a semi-transparent light brown color. The middle layer was a little yellow and a little soft, and the innermost layer was golden. It was so beautiful that it looked like a piece of art. Mag nodded with satisfaction. This was a century egg that looked as bouncy as it was pretty. A faint aroma had already greeted his nose. After making the century egg, cooking porridge was a piece of cake for Mag. After failing for dozens of times, a bowl of congee with pork and century egg that looked good, smelled good, and tasted good was done. Let's have this for breakfast tomorrow. Mag smiled after smiling at the aroma that greeted his nose. Then, he exited the test field for the god of cookery. Early next morning, Mag opened the door and saw Camilla standing there. He teased, "Seems like our countess has found the correct door today." A blush crept up Camilla's haughty face. She stared at Mag as if she wanted to swallow him whole. She huffed and then pushed Mag aside to enter the restaurant. Mag rubbed his shoulder that hurt from the shove. His gaze landed on Camilla, who went into the kitchen and began cutting cucumbers straight away. He raised his brows and thought this woman was no pushover. Anna came downstairs, and asked Mag, "Uncle Mag, is there anything I can help with?" If Anna wants to help, Mag glanced at the time. It was only 6 o'clock. This little one indeed remembered her promise and woke up to help. "Good morning, boss." "Good morning, Anna." Right at this time, Yabimiya's voice sounded out there. She walked in with a smile and greeted Mag and Anna. Elizabeth followed in, and lightly said, "Morning. It's so early. I feel I should have slept for a while longer." Babla came in as yawned. She rubbed her sleepy eyes as if she hadn't woken up completely. Gina came down from upstairs, blinked in a surprise, and said, "Everyone came so early. I thought I was the earliest." Yabimiya gave Mag an energetic smile as she said, "Boss, we are all here. Just tell us if there is anything you need us to do." Mag looked at his staff, who were all present. It was more than 1 hour before they needed to come for work, and the weather was so cold, yet they had all come early. He felt a little touched, and smiled as he said, "I am going to make breakfast for them now. I am preparing the congee with pork and century egg for them. It's also the new item that we are introducing today. Sit down and take a break first. I will only need you when I need to give out the porridge. And, if you are coming in the future, come after 6:30 am. You can sleep in a little longer," Mag added when he reached the kitchen. "Wash the rice and put it into a pot that was big enough. Cook it with a big fire and add in the ingredients according to the sequence." Mag had already known the steps very well in his heart. The porridge slowly thickened in the pot. And outside of the restaurant right now, the cleaners were starting to gather. They were looking into the restaurant cautiously. "Ayo, look at that huge crystal. It's such a piece, and there are 2 of them. How much money do you need for that?" An old man looked through the full-length glass windows in awe. He wanted to reach out to touch it, but quickly retrieved his hand when he was about to touch it. He worriedly said, "I would never be able to pay for it if I broke it." "Yes. This is the prettiest restaurant in Aden Square. Even the Dukas restaurant cannot compare to it," an old lady praised. "Is that boss really going to prepare breakfast for us? I heard the cheapest dish here costs 200 copper coins." There are so many of us, aren't we going to cost him a few thousands? Or he will simply cook us something cheap, a skinny old man said worriedly. Old Jack glared at him as he said, "Don't say nonsense, Elton. Boss Mag is a good person. Since he has promised to cook breakfast for us, he is going to do it. Furthermore, Boss Mag is already providing breakfast for us free of charge. Do you still expect to have the best? I am just making a casual remark. I didn't even bring a biscuit today. If there is no food, I will be going hungry," Elton said awkwardly. He no longer said anything. The cleaners began to gather at the entrance. They started their work at 4 a.m., and had been sweeping in the intense cold for over 2 hours. Now they were already so cold and hungry that they started to hop on the same spot. Harrison and George, who had arranged to exercise together, decided to come to line up at Mamie restaurant just after running for a short while. When they saw the cleaners gathering at the restaurant's entrance, they couldn't help but curiously ask, "Sir, why are you guys gathering at the restaurant so early in the morning? Are you guys coming here to eat as a group? This restaurant's owner is a good man. He said he wanted to provide free breakfast for us. It's almost 6 a.m. now, and we are waiting for our breakfast," old Jack said smilingly. "Wow, Boss Mag is providing free breakfast for you, that's so blissful." Harrison looked at them enviously. "Boss Mag is really a good person," George said with a smile too. Ding! Right at this moment, the bells on the door gave out a chime. The restaurant's door opened outward, and Mia came out with a pot that was even wider than her waist. She placed it on the ground at the entrance effortlessly. "This is one of the so-called weak ladies that Boss Mag mentioned?" Harrison and George swallowed at the same time. Yabimiya gave everyone a bright smile before removing the lid of the big pot. An unique aroma coupled with hot steam rushed toward all of them instantaneously. Chapter 1150. Don't you have any idea how dirty you are? Everyone at the entrance looked toward the big pot with amazement. They breathed in the enticing aroma and watched the steam rise up. Their already hungry stomachs began to growl. "What is this? Why is it smelling so nice?" An old man swallowed his saliva and extended his neck to look toward the pot. Elton licked his lips and said with elation, "It really smells very good, just like meat. Is he treating us to meat so early in the morning?" Meat? The cleaners' eyes began to lit up the very moment they heard the word meat. Their wages could only give them enough food to eat, and they could only afford meat once every few months. If they were able to eat meat every morning, it would be so blissful. This fragrance is so unique. Is Boss Mag releasing a new item again? Harrison looked curious as he stepped forward to look into the pot. The steam that was rising up engulfed the entire pot, so he couldn't see what was in it. At this moment, Mag came out with a signboard and hung it on the door. "Today's new item, congee with pork and century egg. Only for breakfast," Harrison read out loud quietly and slapped his hands together. "I knew it. This must be the new item. Let's have this for breakfast today." "Sure." George nodded. Boss Mag's new item would never disappoint us. Mag greeted Harrison and George with a nod, and then smilingly said to the cleaners, "Since everyone is already here, please give us a moment to scoop out a bowl of piping hot congee with pork and century egg for you." Congee with pork and century egg. There really is meat. Elton stared at the big pot with glowing eyes. His wages couldn't even sustain his gambling habit, and he owed a lot of debts. He hadn't had a full meal for a long time, let alone meat. "It's fine, Boss Mag. We are not hungry," old Jack said with a laugh. "Nonsense. Your stomach has been growling for a long time," the old lady next to him said with a smile. As soon as the old lady finished speaking, there was a series of stomach growling sounds coming from the crowd, and everyone began to laugh. "Looks like you are all hungry." Mag smiled as he picked up a long ladle and took the bowl that Yabimiya passed to him. He scooped a bowl full of congee with pork and century egg, and gave it to the cleaner standing at the front. The brown meat and semi-transparent century egg was mixed in the bowl full of thick porridge. After topping it up with a generous sprinkling of chopped green onions, the taste, color, and aroma were all present. It made the people looking at it begin to salivate. "Everybody, please line up to get your porridge," Yabimiya said to the cleaners with a smile. After a momentary chaos, the cleaners quickly arranged themselves into 2 lines that they stood in during their usual meetings, and went up to receive their porridge one by one. "It's hot. Please be careful," Mag reminded them gently. "Thank you. You are really a very good person," that cleaner said gratefully as he received the congee before carrying the bowl to the steps near the square. He dumped his gurney sack onto the steps and sat down on it. He blew at the congee carefully. "Meat, it's really meat." Elton took the bowl of congee with pork and century egg, and stared at meat in it with glowing eyes as if he had seen some treasure. He immediately reached into the porridge with his bare hand to grab a piece of meat, and popped it into his mouth. He did not care that the porridge was piping hot. After chewing for a while, 2 tears rolled down his cheeks as he said, "Meat. This really is the taste of meat." More and more cleaners had received their congee with pork and century egg, and most of them went to sit on the steps carefully with their bowl. They used the warmth of the bowl to warm their frozen hands. The steam and aroma washed over their faces, and made the tanned and wrinkled faces smile with anticipation. "Boss Mag is really a good man. Providing breakfast for these old people is more practical than anything else," Harrison said, but his gaze was fixed on that bowl of congee with pork and century egg as he gulped. "These old people are so pitiful." Yabimiya gazed at those old people piteously. They still had to wake up so early to do the cleaning work at such an advanced age. Babla propped her face up with her hands as she curiously said, "Is the cleaner's work actually so backbreaking and difficult? I thought they only needed to wave around with magic." This was very far from what she had imagined. She had always thought these old people holding the brooms were sorcerers. Elton wiped his tears away. He looked at those cleaners sitting on the steps, and his gaze landed on the vacant seats at the side. The beautiful wooden table and chairs with intricate carvings. Only the rich and powerful normally sat there to enjoy their expensive meals, and they could only sit on those chilly steps. Why can they sit there and we can't? Since he wants to be a good person, why can't he go all the way? Suddenly, a spike of jealousy rose up in Elton's heart. He turned around and laughingly said to Mag, "Since you are such a good person, Boss Mag, let me sit there to eat. It's not convenient to eat sitting on the steps. Sit down." All the cleaners' gazes landed on those tables and chairs at the entrance. It would be nice if they could sit down and eat the hot porridge comfortably at a table like the rich. Mag passed the congee to old Jack, who was the last in line. He reminded him to be careful before he turned to look at Elton. His sparse white hair was frazzled, and his old tattered jacket had not been washed for a very long time. All kinds of dirt and grease were layered on that face, and he looked no different from a hobo. However, he was a cleaner with a livable wage. Although it wasn't high, it could ensure that an ordinary person would be able to have his meals and shelter. Even if he couldn't have a very respectable life, he could at least afford much better hygiene. Mag calmly said to Elton, "Excuse me, old mister. I can provide you with breakfast, but I can't provide you with a place to eat. Because my restaurant will be opening for business soon, I will have to ensure my restaurant can be ready in time. As you very well know, cleaning takes time and effort. It doesn't matter. We will clean it up for you after we are done. Are you despising us because we are dirty?" Elton said innocently. The cleaners' gazes all landed on Mag with an inexplicable emotion. Mag looked at Elton with slightly furrowed eyebrows. Did the issue he was the most worried about happen inevitably? "This dirty grandpa, don't you have any idea how dirty you are?" Right at this moment, an adorable voice sounded in the restaurant. Amy came out with Ugly Duckling in her arms and looked at Elton with disdain.